Why, hello everyone, and welcome back to what am I doing here?
He's back.
Oh my gosh, did I do something wrong?
No,
Am I looking the right way?
you're back
You think that I had figured this all out by
from
now?
undisclosed locations.
From
That's
my
right. Which
Mexa undisclosed
I
case
totally
ago.
did not, spoil accidentally.
Oh my gosh, it was awesome. I had a
Guess where
great
I
time.
am. It was
Welcome back
good
to
though.
honestly, it was a fantastic trip. I had a
Good for you.
fantastic time. Cannot wait to book the next one. Not sure where that's going to take us, but who knows? Maybe back to the same place. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Fandor. This one, it's episode 7. My name, of course, is Wes Arscott, and I am joined by my very own rebels, Hank McLaughlin and Andrew Daw. Fandor, as you may or may not know, is our little weekly review series where we break down each episode of Star Wars Andor, now on Disney+. Whether this is your first time with us or you've been here for the long haul, I want to say thank you for choosing us. We really do appreciate the support. I'm telling you guys, reading your comments means a lot to us. And remember, sometimes those comments can even influence the direction of the show. So please keep them coming. Now, as I've said it before, you might want to think of our show as being like an annotated audiobook because our breakdowns are beat for beat, where we cover all the plot points and Easter eggs, as well as all the greater Star Wars lore connections that we discover throughout the course of the show. Now, you might be thinking, but Wes, I've seen it all and I've heard it all. Yeah, I've heard everything about the episode, but I am encouraging you, please stick around because our show is just a little bit different than most, and you might be pleasantly surprised at just what you may have missed.
Or
They don't know
may have
what
been
we
missed
know.
elsewhere.
Exactly. Now, with all of that out of the way, I want to do something a little bit different, and I'm calling this segment Bad Star Wars Jokes.
Oh yeah.
I've got one for you.
Oh wow. Excellent.
I've got one for you. Guys, what do you call an Alderaanian princess who only shops at Whole Foods?
Oh, I do not know.
Princess Leia Organic.
Nice. I have one, but should
That's a
we
good
save
one.
it for next week?
Sure, we'll save it for next week.
Excellent.
That's a new segment, and like I said, we're calling this one Bad Star Wars Jokes. So watch and listen for more of those. Yeah. Also, if you have a bad Star Wars joke, please send it over. We'd love to. I mean, providing that it's not that we can use it on air.
Family
But we
friendly.
would love to hear and see your bad Star Wars jokes. Guys, episode 7.
No joke.
Seriously now, what do we just sort of first impressions? What do you guys think about the episode overall?
It left me hanging.
That's an interpretation.
Wait a second. Okay, that's fair. Anything else you want to throw out before we
I mean, so they're back at it again in terms of the self one-upsmanship, if you will.
that's a great analogy.
Like
That is a
6 was
fantastic
incredible.
analogy.
6 did things for me that I feelings wise I hadn't felt since I was a little kid watching Star Wars. And you think to yourself, after the show is over, after you've watched it,
What happened? There we go.
how do you top that? In your quiet moments, you're like, how you're watching it by yourself, maybe the 5th time, you're like, how do we top this? And then they do, and everything.
Yeah,
the
they
preamble was like distracting almost. This is a standalone. It's like that was the least standalone of, I could name 5 shows in the episodes of The Mandalorian that were completely standalone.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that didn't feel standalone at all.
No, that was sort of the thing going into this week where they'd sort of postulated because first and only time director for this show, that's sorry, not director, writer, I should correct that. Didn't jive with sort of the episode, the arc narrative that has been used up till now.
Right.
the episode still pushes everything forward, though,
in a major way.
as far as jiving with the rest.
It doesn't feel out of place. It doesn't feel like
It's not
if it
really
were
a filler
missing,
episode.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
If it were missing, we would have missed a lot.
I feel like we got some more questions posited this week. Certainly, I have a few, but man, I tend to look at the titles, and I like to take the title and sort of lay that over top of the show and kind of look at it sort of through each character's eyes and kind of see what it means. And I mean, beyond the obvious, Dedra, it's an announcement. I mean, do we not have several announcements this week?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
I think that on some level, I look at Cyril Karn talking to the guy at the bureau that he's going to clear his name. That's an announcement. I mean, if you know,
yeah, that means he's not done. We're not
no,
finished with that
absolutely.
character. Expect more.
We get the introduction of our new. We posited, is there a bigger Imperial bad? We got that answered in spades, and that character makes an announcement with the emergency measures enacted by the Emperor,
and he drops sort of a backdoor legacy line.
Yeah. Marva's metaphorical announcement that she's going to stand with the rebellion.
Yeah, and you know, like you had said, like Dedra lays it on the line.
She does.
And that's actually an old film trope, is to have your villain say the title of your movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, Andy, go for it.
We'd speculated, right, that because of who was left behind at the end of the heist, that they might just, write it off as, it was an inside job, whatever. But her doubling down on it and like pushing forward. Okay, they're not going to let that happen. She's going to make sure that, the Imperials know there is something coming at them.
I've never rooted for the Empire before, but I like her.
Yes.
I like her. And if you're going to root for somebody, she seems to be the one to get behind.
Yeah. The only thing that kind of took me out this week, or not so much took me out, but caught me off guard.
What's that?
Was the Andor Miami section.
Niami.
Yeah,
I love Niami. Having just come back from vacation, I watched that and I started laughing. I'm like, oh man, this is the episode I should have done from the pool.
But at the same time, it's like after a couple minutes, it's like, okay, this is just another facet of normal life that we haven't seen before.
I mean, we
got a hint of it on Canto Bite, but nowhere near as like
we talked a little bit about that comic with Wedge.
Yeah.
And Porkins on vacation, or sorry, not Wedge, Biggs.
Yeah.
Biggs on vacation. And it's like, oh, now we're actually seeing people on vacation. Of course, people in the Star Wars galaxy take vacations.
I've sort of been on all of the Disney shows, and I kind of feel like that about any property that explores familiar territory, if you will.
Yeah.
And my caveat has always been, are you going to give us something that matters? Is there a reason for the story? Or are we just playing in a Star Wars sandbox? Are we just playing in a Marvel sandbox? Certainly, not to be too negative, but She-Hulk felt like we were just playing in a sandbox. It wasn't very cohesive for me. It didn't feel like a story that absolutely needed to be told.
Right.
And when I realized what the Aldhani heist does for Star Wars, I go, this is one of the biggest stories that's never been told. This is the catalyst for the Empire to literally lift the veil completely off and expose themselves as what they actually are.
Yeah.
And there couldn't be a more important story, if you ask me.
I agree. I keep going back to my boy Nemec, may he rest, but like that man's legacy, I feel, is like at the center of everything that's happening here. And in light of what happens this week, I'm like nail bitingly like, oh my God, what's going to happen now?
Right.
Well, it's still safe where it is.
Have you ever been on vacation? Do you trust housekeeping in a foreign country? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
right.
I'm not saying that you should or you shouldn't, but I mean, things happen when you vacation, and there are precautions that you take when you travel. And although he has taken a precaution,
where is it?
That's a risky one.
Huge risk.
Of course, he didn't know he was going to get picked up that day. So.
No.
All right. Last thing I want to just sort of generally speaking, I haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about it, but this episode, for whatever reason, that little hook that they use going into Niami that they play again at the end credits, I love that music. Love it. I'm a huge fan of the Tron Legacy soundtrack, and it reminds me very much of that style of music. And it's like the least Star Warsian Star Wars music
totally.
ever, and I love it.
At first, I didn't. It's growing on me, certainly. At first, it felt too not Star Wars, like you said, it felt too Earth-like.
Yeah,
it's like the 4/4 drum track kind of thing or whatever. But it's grown on me, certainly.
Sure. All right, guys, you want to get to it?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. This week it's episode 7. This one is called The Announcement. It aired on Wednesday, October 19th on Disney Plus. This one is written by Stephen Schiff. It is directed by Benjamin Caron. We have an advertised runtime of 53 minutes, or a much leaner 43 minutes 43 minutes and 26 seconds sans credits and titles. Now, Stephen Schiff, he was the writer of Clint Eastwood's True Crime, as well as the screenplay for American Assassin. I don't know if you guys saw that one. That's a really good movie. And Benjamin Caron, director of 11 episodes of The Crown, of which he also produced 20 of them. So, a show about political intrigue.
He's also the director of the final 2 episodes, I believe, as well.
That is correct. Yes, he will be directing the last arc, as it were.
Yeah, that makes me go.
Yeah, it makes me quite like I'm a little perked up at that. Like, oh, we talked about wanting to see the political drama, and I mean, this guy. I mean, we all have heard. I mean, I haven't watched it yet, but I think we've all heard at how well The Crown has been received, and that makes me feel good in the sense that a show like The Crown, which is so steeped in the monarchy and British politics, it's an easy leap to come on to Andor with the story that they're trying to tell here. All right. Our episode opens with our good friend Cyril Karn, who's now sitting on his bed, staring out the window. Now, we've seen him here before, but it's a little bit different today because Cyril is all dressed in a brand new suit. Perhaps taking some influence from his old Primor uniform, the suit bears a strikingly high Mandarin collar, a collar of which Edie, his mother, she's not too thrilled about that because today, Cyril's going to be interviewing for a new job over at the Bureau of Standards. An interview which, according to Edie, has been arranged with Uncle Harlow's influence.
Called in the favor.
Yeah. An influence that, as she puts it, is something not to be trifled with. Well, Edie chastises the high collar, and she calls Cyril an individual, saying that he's not just representing himself today. When Cyril asks her what it is that his collar is saying, she mocks him with "Look at me. I don't believe in myself. I'm desperate for approval." But it's the hollow news in the background that gets Cyril's attention, as the announcer describes a robbery and a terrorist attack on the Imperial Armory at Aldhani. The broadcaster goes on to say that there are multiple fatalities and that a blockade order has been issued. When Cyril asks Edie what happened, she snorts that some rabble have attacked the garrison there, and she sneers, "They'll regret it." Well, I mean, if that is not, playing her cards, Edie is clearly pro-Imperial.
Well, she lives fairly high up on Coruscant, so.
Yeah.
Well, she's above ground.
Yeah.
She is above ground.
Access to sunlight.
What little there is, or at least on Cyril's room anyway. Uncle Harlow has been a looming presence without ever having any screen time. And it comes around a couple of times in this episode. and I'm going to bring it up again a little bit later because I still have questions. That's probably one of my biggest questions is Uncle Harlow. I keep saying, maybe we'll get an episode titled Uncle Harlow. We probably won't, but
maybe he comes to check up.
I would like to have at least an appearance by this person so we can finally go, aha, and have our eureka moment.
Sure. I think that the fact that he's been placed in the bureau at the sort of the lowest level of the bureaucracy of the empire. I think that puts us with Uncle Harlow being that Moff that we talked about. I don't think for a second that this bureau isn't a subsect of the empire, yeah.
All right. So our newscaster, that's Richard Lister. He's actually a former BBC newscaster. He left the BBC back in January of 2020 to become a novelist. Yeah. Well, on top of covering conflicts in the Balkans and Iraq, he also covered United States diplomacy, having traveled with 3 U.S. secretaries of state. Lister was actually based in the U.S. for about 10 years, where he first covered the Clinton administration, and then again as he covered the election of Barack Obama.
Neat.
I thought I recognized him when I saw him. Like, that guy looks familiar. And yeah, BBC, actual BBC caster. Good for him.
Now, is this the first time we're actually seeing like a actual newscast? Because we got like a little ticker tape hollow thing back in The Mandalorian.
Sure.
But as far as like a typical news broadcast,
I think we've seen newscasts in Rebels.
There's an interesting. Oh, that's true. Were they done like this? Were they done in this style?
Not in this style, but I think the one I can recall off the top of my head, that it's somebody watching a vid, but we're watching them watch the vid, so we don't get to see the screen.
Gotcha.
But the voiceover is very reminiscent of it. Like, I mean, just the style of, this is the news. Here are the events.
I look at him and he looks like a very well-dressed private citizen. This does not look like state-run media to me.
No,
this looks very, very private. Like this could be, pardon the pun, but this could be like the CBC News, right?
True, which is state-run media, but
that's so true. That is true. Yeah,
and in much the same way, you wouldn't have a stormtrooper or an imperial officer necessarily reading the news. You would probably have someone trying to make the public feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's so true.
Connected to.
Interesting. Very interesting.
They pride themselves on that at the Coruscant Broadcasting Corporation.
Also, the
also the CBC. Work it.
We cut over to the central office where Dedra is changing her tunic in her office. Apparently, Major Partagaz was true to his word about no one going home, because we cut to the doorway of the circular briefing room where there is a senior ISB officer who's now briefing the sector supervisors about the Aldhani attack from the night before. It's the usual cast of characters that we've already seen, plus a few new faces in the background, as it looks like all of the attendants are also present at this meeting. What's interesting in this actual scene right here that we're looking at is that Major Partagaz is seated amongst the other sector supervisors, but he's not in his usual central seat, which has been left open for our mystery officer. Well, the officer says that the criminals responsible for the Aldhani attack think that they've taken the Empire by surprise. But he says that the real shock will come when the Empire shows them how ready and eager they are to respond. He continues to exposit how this event is the reason why they plan and work so hard in peacetime. So the only question that anyone needs answering is, how tight do they squeeze their fist?
There's that legacy line.
As the camera rolls past several familiar faces, the officer moves from the doorway and he begins to circle the table. All the while explaining the new emergency measures that will be enacted empire-wide later that day. Any sectors harboring partisan activity will be levied a tribute tax in the amount of 5 times what was stolen from Aldhani. So if Skeen is to be believed, that amounts to 400 million credits.
Give or take.
Yeah, give or take. He adds that the use of any local custom, festival, or tradition as a cover for rebel activity will result in the permanent revocation of imperial tolerance.
Yeah, it reminded me of them using Empire Day as their cover in Rebels. And I went, well, that's crafty. We're using their holiday against them.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
Arriving at his seat, we see the familiar and yet new live-action face of Colonel Wolf Yularen. Yularen, the former Republic Navy admiral, now turned Imperial ISB officer. He says that he spoke with the Emperor personally and that going forward, the ISB will be taking the lead on rebel activity, and no one in the room should have any difficulty accessing Army or Navy assets. He adds that the Emperor will be convening an emergency session of the Senate to introduce a slew of bills and amendments that will, as he puts it, free their hands in all matters of surveillance, search, and seizure. He says that they will be invoking what's called the Public Order Resentencing Directive, or PORD, later that day, a measure that means that any criminal activity that has even an indirect effect on the Empire will now be considered a Class 1 offense. And under the Imperial Penal Code, offenses are broken down into 5 classes, with Class 1 being the most serious. That means that all. Yep.
Oh, can we go back to that shot of him from behind in the hall? That's the one.
This one.
I mean, that can't be lost on anyone watching, right? He's literally giving the line about how tight do we squeeze our fists.
Yeah.
Standing in what looks like a stormtrooper, or even more so like Vader's helmet. Especially, except for the fact that it's white, especially that scene from Revenge of the Sith where they're putting the mask over his face.
Oh, yes, very much so.
And I just thought, man, now that's cinematography.
Yeah, it's beautiful. All right, he says, yes, talking about the PORD, Class 1 offense. That means that all prison sentences will be reevaluated, while all fines and levies will be paid in full. So no more payment plans on your parking tickets, folks.
Yep. Calling it in.
I want to hold on this for a second because, I mean, I love Star Wars. I love the expanded universe. And if one thing, and we've seen it in canon as well, is that we know that there is corruption from within the Empire. So there's a duality here with what Yularen is saying, that not only is he telling the sectors, as in the population, about what's going to happen, it puts pressure on the supervisors themselves for whatever little personal empires they've been trying to carve out.
Right.
That nobody is immune to what's about to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that there are already captains within the Navy that are willing to turn a blind eye and let things like a Starpath unit go out to a shipbreaking yard. We can just let that go. There's
that indirectly affects the Empire.
That's what I mean. Like, profiteering is just like the least of what. Look at the officer on Ferrix, who just basically says, "Can I be prefect?"
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Right.
Like that whole Empire building.
And I mean, what kind of weight does it give to that conversation between Nemec and Cassian? Maybe after tomorrow they'll know who we are. And Cassian says, "Careful what you wish for, because
right.
This is what's going to happen."
Right. Cool to see Yularen turn up here. Did anybody actually think Yularen? I know we were kind of blindsided.
I was Tarkin. I was all over Tarkin, but this.
And I'm like, this is a Rogue One prequel. It's going to be Krennic.
Yeah, I know.
But does it not make so much more sense now that, of course, it's Yularen?
It absolutely is. It begs the question in my head: is Yularen the head of the ISB? He's served under Palpatine ostensibly since he was a young officer.
That's right. When
we watched him. Beautiful, excellent.
Yeah.
John Cleese looking.
Yeah, exactly. And then an older John Cleese. So this is technically the second live action appearance of Yularen as that guy from A New Hope was kind of retconned to be Yularen. Right. But this one, Wolf Yularen is played by Malcolm Sinclair. He was in V for Vendetta, where he played Major Wilson. More interestingly, he played Dryden in Casino Royale. And I don't know do you remember the opening sequence of Casino Royale?
It's been a while.
So Dryden was the corrupt MI6 agent that Bond became Bond's second kill that got him the 00 status. Yeah, so that as well. Also, no stranger to Star Wars, because Malcolm gave us the voices of Darth Mortis and Darth Charnas in Star Wars: The Old Republic. So,
cool.
Welcome home, Colonel Yularen. After the meeting and back in her office, Dedra stares out the window while Attendant Hirt looks on. Referring to the events at Aldhani, she calls it just what the rebels want, adding that the Empire is playing right into their hands. Now, she's quite critical that her superiors are treating this like a robbery, when to her, it is clearly part of the pattern that she's already warned them about. And when Hirt asks her what she'd call it, Ed returns from the window and she calls it an announcement.
Yeah.
Now, back at the gallery, Luthen fiddles with a knob on his pirate radio as he listens to a robotic voice reporting on the Aldhani robbery. In addition to the stolen 80 million credits, the report also notes that all military personnel have been replaced and they are being interrogated by the ISB. Hank, you called it that the Empire might see this as an inside job.
Yeah, I mean, they even go on to say they took like 137 civilians in too to question them. Like, it seemed like if there's any sort of, I mean, at least for them to start poking the bear, to start looking in that direction. You leave 2 dead Imperial, stormtrooper sergeant and an actual lieutenant,
and a lieutenant,
dead on the floor of a robbery. It's going to look strongly. And I think this is the whole point of Dedra, is that Dedra is going to be the one that exposes it for what it is, which is a highly interconnected web of rebel strikes on high target things to acquire, ways of combating the Empire,
building a rebellion.
I have one more question about this, about the implication of this, and it's kind of dark. Did Cinta kill the family?
I think I said that very episode. I think she did. There were tears in her eyes as she blended into the crowd,
as she kind of wandered away. Yeah,
and I think that that's a little way of softening the character. But they made a point of hitting us over the head by, first of all, Skeen telling us her background and therefore why she would be so cold, and then doubling down on saying she's the most ruthless of us all, and then having her be the first person in the group to kill somebody. Walks like a duck, talks like a duck.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. That's a +1 for did it.
Yeah.
Andy, what do you think?
I'm still on the fence just because we got that really great visual of the freighter flying out and the family still sitting there in the control room watching. So was Cinta still there at that point?
That's the big question. Yeah,
frame, right?
She's not in frame. So did she wander away while they were down in the vault, or
did they get to see it and then behind the camera she just unloaded on all 4?
It could have been an off-camera thing.
I mean, I hate to say this, but it's not good business to leave those people alive, having seen all your faces.
You're right. Because anybody else, as I said here in my notes, with the exception of the family, anybody that could have given any indication or insight, they're dead.
Yeah, like if any of
Kimsey and all the troopers that were down in the basement playing cards, they're all dead.
There was 3 that if they survived the blast off, right? There was 3 that got knocked out.
Oh, right, those guys.
If those 3 are still alive, they're going to say Gorn did it.
I believe that. I do believe that that's
what right.
Point them in the wrong direction. But
as J-Hole was having the giant jammer.
Yeah.
And they might even think that the colonel was in on it too, because he didn't actually. He had the heart attack before he could say.
He couldn't answer. answer them one way or the other.
I mean, from their perspective, it certainly looked like Gorn was
wouldn't
asking
that add
him
a whole layer if the next time, let's presume for a moment that the family survived, and the next time we see them that they're in some sort of detention facility,
room or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
right
That'll add a whole new twist
in
to
the
it.
cell next to Cassian.
Really, eh? The robotic voice adds that tracking devices on the ship, the Rono freighter, were disabled before they jumped to hyperspace, but 134 Aldani residents have been taken into custody under the suspicion of abetting the terrorists. That's more than double the number of people that showed up. So
yeah, that wasn't lost on me at all.
Did they just pick a bunch up at the comfort stops on the way up the hill?
Everyone that they could probably find, you know, like
Probably,
that number might even be modest.
Yeah.
Because Gorn said there's like 60 or so, but they might pick up a few more. And
that's right.
Double.
Yeah. And certainly not in the time that it took for the sun to go down. Yeah.
Right.
All right. A chime rings out, and Luthen quickly stashes the pirate radio while Clea opens the sliding door from the front of the gallery. She announces that Mon Mothma is there, and with his back to her, Luthen smirks as he says, without warning, and chuckling. Now, this is interesting. Clea is actually laughing. Now, they can't see each other.
Mm-hmm.
She laughs as she tells him to wipe the smile off his face. And I cannot help but think that this is an inside joke between the two of them, that they know that she's going to be pissed.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. It like you had speculated, I'm like, who is in charge here? It's certainly, you know,
is he the top dog?
Lauren certainly had the authority to tell me to wipe the smile off my face a few times. So, but it begs the question: is Clea the one actually in charge?
There's a tension. Maybe I'm bringing this up too soon, but I'll bring it up now because it's fresh in my mind. There's a tension between Clea and the interaction that she has later with Vel.
I agree.
There is every possibility that this is a second wife for Luthen, that this is not, because I've doubled down this week that I firmly believe that Vel,
the young stepmom vibe. Yeah, I got that too.
There's a familial connection here between Vel and Luthen.
Yeah, I got that too.
I have said father-daughter. I can't see it being anything else. And if Clea is like you say, the younger stepmom, it would explain some of the tension that they have during that conversation, which we will talk about.
You know, Val certainly shares that ability to dress nicer, you know, like blend in with the Ritz. Yeah.
All right. So on the platform outside the gallery, Cloris, the Senate driver, hands Mon Mothma the box containing the borrowed divinity. She tells Luthen that she should have called ahead, but they were on their way to the Senate and they just happened to stop by. Well, they enter the gallery, and before the door can even shut, so the door is open, and she hisses at him, "Was this you?"
Yeah. Let's hope Clovis can't read lips, eh?
Well, here's the thing. This is what I was getting at. Like, she is so mad that she hasn't even waited for the door to close before she's dropped it and she's on him.
Yeah.
Like, that should tell you how angry she is.
Yeah.
During the scene that both of them, they're super careful to keep their back to him and, like, you know, trying to conceal facial expressions, especially Luthen. Like, if he's not looking, he can deviate, but as soon as he's looking, he's got that goofy smile, shop owner look on his face.
Oh, sure.
Again.
I actually, I criticized myself as I was watching this and as I was preparing for tonight's show, because I didn't pick up on it the first time around, but she's returning that divinity, that two-faced, the serpent, and then the light god. And we'd sort of, you know, brushed the broad strokes that it was an analogy and a metaphor for the rebellion and the empire, but like, it's literally Luthen and Mon Mothma.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like this opposing ideology that we're going to be exposed to here in a second, which puts Luthen way more in the camp of someone like Saw Gerrera.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. Like, the difference between the average rebel and an actual partisan willing to do whatever it takes. And I do get those vibes off of him.
Yeah, me too.
You know, especially when he drops his countenance, his cover.
Especially in the line that he's about to deliver here, because like she says, "Was this you?" And he kind of laughs, and he what does he say here? Luthen facing the glass in front of the gallery with Cloris just beyond. He keeps up his appearances by overacting his friendly, if not mildly eccentric curator role. And he says, "What do you mean?" And then she says, "I was worried you would do something like this." And he laughs back at her, and he's like, "I wish I had." And to me, that's like saying, "I wish I was there." Because if I was a younger man or anybody else, I might have been.
Right.
Yeah. And therein that militancy, like, oh yeah, he's a doer, you know.
Yeah.
Ushering the senator away from the front entrance, Luthen continues the ruse by putting on some white gloves to pick up the Palan monk cudgel. But now that the two of them are safely out of Cloris's earshot, they begin to argue back and forth. Mon Mothma doesn't believe that Luthen wasn't involved, while Luthen counters that revolutions are expensive. She tries to tell him that she's doing all she can, but he's really dismissive of her, and he says that, well, your version of all you can seems to be bringing in someone else to help you access your family funds. Well, at that, Mon Mothma is absolutely convinced that Luthen was responsible for Aldhani, and Luthen, keeping up the dismissiveness, reminds her that she was well aware of the risks that were involved at the outset. Well, Mon Mothma has this like fearful quiver where like you see her face like as she's like, "Do you realize what you've done?" Like she is. Hats off to Genevieve O'Reilly for that bit of like conveyance there, because I totally bought into it that she's like freaked the F out. Yeah. Do you realize what you have done? But Luthen craftily, he just changes the subject. I thought you were here to tell me about the meeting. And she says that, well, it's tonight, but they may reschedule. Well, turning away from her to pick up the cudgel, Luthen becomes very stern, almost angry, when he says that he warned her when they started. Mon Mothma says that they were supposed to be building a network, but he cuts her off very sharply, asking, "What were my words?" She infers that the incident at Aldhani is something else, but Luthen fires back angrily, "Turning back will be impossible," and that she always knew where this was headed. Picking up the cudgel, he turns to face her again, and half-assed slipping back into his eccentric act, he metaphorically asks, "Has anyone ever made a weapon they didn't use?" as he presents it to her. But then he lowers his voice again, and he says that the network has been built, and it either grows or it dies.
Yeah, it's not the first time they dropped that line. They dropped that line.
Yeah. That's a couple times. Yeah. In like slightly different
exactly.
Variations. Yeah.
I think the other one is Deirdre.
From the back room, Clea, who's eavesdropping electronically, some kind of speaker.
That worried me a little.
That she's eavesdropping.
Yeah, I got a creepy vibe off that. Like,
yeah, it's a little weird. Like, again,
she's been in the room while they've had these conversations. There's no reason for her not to be in the room. Yeah.
Luthen tells Mon Mothma that they've waited long enough, and Mon cryptically asks, "You realize what you've set in motion?" And Luthen answers her with, "It was time for that as well." There's an implication here that there are two distinct things happening. I presume the rebellion to be the obvious one. What is the other thing that he's implying? Did you guys pick up on that?
I'm not sure. That's a good ask.
Yeah. I mean,
anybody out in the ether have any ideas?
Anybody who's watching live with us right now, if you guys picked up on that Luthen is suggesting that there are two distinct things happening here. Thoughts, ideas? Send us your comments and let us know.
Is it maybe just like the veil coming off the Empire that he's implying?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Flex their muscle in front of the entire galaxy.
So my initial thought was, is she talking about the timeline? Like, and this is me just sort of assuming a lot of things. Like, we know that she's going to leave the Senate. We also know that she doesn't leave the Senate until the Gorman massacre.
Right.
So that's still a little ways off. But I wondered if what they're talking about pertains to she laid out a timeline for her exit, and that what Luthen has done now accelerates that.
It's quite possible.
I don't know.
Because it would conflict with her plans, which,
maybe
nobody's happy when that happens.
No, of course not.
Certainly her daughter's got to be on her mind.
Lita.
In her family.
Yeah. Well, back up front, Mon Mothma says that Palpatine won't hesitate now. And Luthen exclaims, exactly. Lowering his voice again, Luthen adds that they need the fear and they need the Empire to overreact.
Mm-hmm.
When she retorts, you can't be serious, he tells her that the Empire has been choking them so slowly that they've started not to notice.
I love that line so much.
Has come to force their hand.
That line is so good. Wow.
Nemec had insinuated the same thing when he was going through, the 40 small atrocities, as opposed to one giant one.
Right.
Yeah. It's the frog in the pot.
Yeah, exactly.
Boiling so slow you don't realize it.
Mon says that people will suffer. And quite stoically, Luthen looks directly at her and says, that's the plan.
It's like
how freaking sinister is that? Just for those of you who are watching, whether you're watching us live now or in the replay, take a look at Luthen's his eyes in that. And like Hank, you said it before. Does he not give off some Palpatine vibes?
It certainly does. Yeah, it's more than just the wig there too.
Yeah.
And point of view for sure.
I've said it, and it's a weird thing, and I won't get into the context. I've said it, but I've said often, if you're going to defeat a monster, you need to become a monster.
The bigger monster.
Right.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, turning to place the cudgel back onto the rest, he says, "You're not mad at me. I'm just saying out loud what you already know." And he adds that going forward, there will be no rules. Coldly, he tells her, if you're not willing to risk your conscience, then surrender and be done with it. Taking off the gloves and with his head hanging heavy, Luthen kind of gets a little quiet here, and he says that they need every credit that they can get their hands on. He tells Mon to let him know how the meeting goes. And then the two slip fully back into their characters, as Mon Mothma says that she won't be taking either piece today. And as she leaves the gallery, Luthen bids her, always at your service, Senator, as he watches her get into the limo. She stares coldly back at him. Then, as the gallery door closes, Clea, who's now moved up to the back counter, says, I hope she's worth it. And Luthen answers, well, we'll see, won't we? And then Luthen watches as the limo pulls away, remarking, we can't hide forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's a couple scenes in this that are just like super powerful that way, where like this sequence was nothing but a bunch of like double entendre, metaphor rich sequence.
Certainly the sentiment that you can't hide from the Empire is echoed, especially in the Marva scene that's coming up.
We got some new addition. I won't call them. There is a new addition. There's a couple new things going on in the gallery this week, which is the Star Wars treasure trove, as I like to call it.
Oh man!
We get our best look at the Keldor breathing apparatus that people are still saying is Plo Koon's, although I still question that because of the fiery explosion that he died in.
Unless it's made of Beskar.
Sitting right beside the cudgel, though, was a pair of like crazy armored claw gauntlets that are massive.
I went down a rabbit hole. I went down a crazy glove rabbit hole. I was looking at Yuuzhan Vong armor, and I found a Legends reference to Vader's right hand glove being made of Beskar.
Oh,
and being a Mandalorian, what they call a crush gaunt.
Okay, yeah.
I found an entire website dedicated to the buffs of all the different gloves you can wear
sure.
Knights of the Old Republic
Knights of the Old
game.
Republic. Yeah.
It was just a list of
you could be there for a long time.
But I literally couldn't find anything that screamed, this is this item, this is what it is.
In the moment, as I'm staring at this, I just had a thought. I don't know why it didn't come to me the other day, but remember Mark Singer's movie, The Beastmaster?
Yes. Yeah.
Remember the guy in the dungeon? The guy that they ended up, it kind of looks like the gloves that he was wearing.
Well, it's quite possible.
In a way.
Yeah, the closest thing I could find was like an old Japanese dragon claw glove.
Yeah. It does.
It's not the same. It just looks like it could be part of the lineage.
It definitely has sort of gladiator vibes going on, but then the claws are like,
Whew.
There's also like, and they didn't get into like super detail, but there's just a bevy of references to armor that the Sith would wear throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
And they tended to armor up more than the Jedi. So it kind of struck me as maybe something along those lines.
I didn't get a shot of it this week, but there we got to see the profile of the carbonite slabs.
There is no denying that is the idol.
But I also wanted to add there is a scene where, looking at the second one that we're presuming is the idol, there's a body. There's hands and like knees sticking out of it, like it's laying on its back.
Oh wow!
So maybe some artistic
liberties.
Yeah. But I think the most exciting one.
Oh yeah.
The most exciting thing that we got this week was a live action depiction of the Jedi Temple Guard helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people were saying that the bracers that were laying there beside it may also be part of the same ceremonial garb, but
I was totally
fixated on the helmet.
By the helmet. Yeah. So it brings me full circle to that question I had in the second episode, which is
Luthen has
that is not an object the Empire lets you have.
Well,
that's like, so either this is an illegal shop or it's a knockoff. And I don't. Maybe so your wheels start to turn. Maybe it's enough for the Empire to go.
Yeah.
The relics have been reduced to just trinkets that people purchase.
Yeah.
But I still feel like they, I think it's canon. There's a gray area in the comic. Masamita burns Yoda's lightsaber.
Oh, right.
And they destroy the Jedi. They dismantle everything, like to the point where we're 20 years in the future at one point going, people don't know that Jedi even existed.
That's right. I mean, we assume they went through great lengths to erase them from history.
Yeah. So it begs the question, like, how deep is this cover? Like is this an illegal pawn shop or item shop, like for where the super elite, because those things exist, right?
It just seems like it's in the wrong place, though. Like, it's above ground, it's brightly lit, it's in a nice neighborhood. Like,
it's not the Mogwai shop from Gremlins.
Yeah, exactly.
So then my head automatically goes, okay, these are knockoffs. Man, it's like such a big question for such a small item.
We can hang on this for a while if you want to, but I mean, Star Wars has already, especially with the sequel trilogy, has given us a lot of new applications of the Force. And Star Wars has done that. Every Star Wars movie has given us a new application of the Force that we never saw before.
It's true.
And the one that I'm referring to now is Luke Skywalker's ability to sever his connection from the Force.
Mm-hmm.
You'd said it before, Hank. Is Luthen a Jedi?
Yeah. I mean,
is he a Jedi who's severed his connection to the Force?
Was he a Temple Guard?
And I mean, and here's an interesting add-on. We've never really followed a Jedi who's been on the edge. They were either a Jedi or they were a Sith. There was nobody sort of, the closest we got was Luke Skywalker contemplating, do I kill my nephew? And then he didn't. He had the temptation and then he stopped. But we've never been down the road of someone who was on the edge where they're like, they could turn.
When I was young, I wondered, why is Luke wearing black in Return of the Jedi, when clearly there's a precedent for not wearing black, which was just canonized in the Star Wars comic number 28. They just they literally canonized a reason. Luke dresses like an Imperial officer to get out a couple of defectors to rescue them.
Wow. Okay.
And the female defector comments that Luke looks good in that uniform. And when you look at the dark Imperial uniform next to Luke's black Jedi,
it's very close
jumpsuit. It's so super close,
especially with the flap down.
Right. They seem, but you know, I mean, when you talk about aspects of the Force, especially with helmets, and again in the comics, guys, read the comics. Vader, you know, puts a helmet from a Sith Lord from the past on an Imperial officer, and he's possessed by that Sith Lord. And that guy builds Vader's castle for him. So there, I mean, this.
I'm just gonna borrow your body for a while.
This could be something huge just sitting in the background there.
Yeah.
And we really need to have a role-playing game based on some of these things that we're seeing in this show.
I mean, if we really want to go and just like wildly throw stuff at the wall, we could just, you know, throw it out there that this might be the Grand Inquisitor's helmet.
I mean, man.
Well, here's your wild one. Luthen was a temple guard, and he's doing this because he's mad.
That's not so wild in what we're proposing, though. That's my point exactly. Like, if Luke Skywalker can cut himself off from the Force and, you know, and throw himself into the nowhere in the galaxy to avoid temptation, could somebody do the same, cut themselves off and fight their own war in a different way?
I mean, Cal Kestis did it as well, so there's double precedent there. So.
Yeah.
He could be walking down the same road as Darth Maul, right? Like, the Empire is his adversary, so it doesn't matter if he's Jedi or Sith.
No,
because he's seeking revenge.
That's right.
Like, they're seeking to undo the Empire.
Yeah.
Tony Gilroy.
Questions.
I know.
All right.
We cut to an aerial shot of the Coruscant cityscape where we are looking down at some of the smaller buildings, if you can believe that. Where we can also hear a man talking about how people think they're kidding when they say that there are no small jobs at the Bureau of Standards. We then cut to an interior of a cavernous building with endless rows of octagonal workstations that are very reminiscent of the interior of a beehive, where Cyril Karn walks with an older man. The man's name is Flob. 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 And he's interviewing Cyril for his new job. Flob continues that he spoke with Uncle Harlow and admits that while other jobs may seem more exciting from the outside, if you ask any career employee, you'll be surprised.
Right.
I can't stop laughing at this. When we talk about the Bureau, and I'm going to bring this is kind of funny, but just like pedantically speaking, when we talk about the Federal Bureau of Investigation, how is that abbreviated?
FBI.
Bureau of Standards. How is that abbreviated? BS.
Oh, yeah.
Cyril Karn is wearing a brown suit in the BS.
It's great.
I can't stop. Poor guy.
I think the real question, though, is there another Flob? Flob, I'd like to talk to you. And Flob?
Well, this is the other thing, right?
Flob.
Like, so, I mean, fans of any role-playing game, you may be familiar with the phrase, there are no Bobs. I think we just met our Star Wars Bob.
Yeah.
And it's Flob.
The necktie, everything. Everything's
oh
perfect.
My God.
Yeah. I mean, the show has gone through great lengths to show us the everyday and the mundane, and the personal views of the average, you know, and here we are at the lowest, ostensibly the lowest levels. I mean, sure, we could actually talk to an Imperial janitor, but at ostensibly the lowest levels of the Empire.
That was
right in the bureaucracy. And, And this Mr. Flob here is so sincerely proud of his station. Like you know,
you get the feeling that it's you know, it's taken him every second of his entire existence to get to where he is right now.
Right. And literally the Empire is so vast, so big that how could it turn without all these tiny cogs.
And yet it has to. It has to.
Yeah.
Because like the hive aspect of the whole place, like, yes, it's cubicles, but it's on an empire-wide scale.
Yeah. Well, Flob takes a look down at his pad that he's carrying, and he's quite surprised as he remarks, Morlana 1. Do we think that the pad is Cyril's resume? Because, and I asked this, would you put that on your resume? Oh, by the way, I was employed by the Primor, security company, and I was posted to Morlana 1, and then I got fired. Would you put that on your resume?
Probably wouldn't. I mean, not in light of the be very like summarily removed from the position. Like, I think that's probably he's an imperial bureaucrat. He's got access to the information, especially new hires.
Well,
and you got to think that Mom was completely open and honest with Uncle Harlow.
Of course.
Right. So, I don't, she seems bent on shaming him. And this is a good way to shame him. Is by
if Uncle Harlow is what we think he might be, then certainly it could be within his power to acquire said information. That being said, do we think that the information on that pad is notes or an email from Uncle Harlow?
Or is it just possible. Like a standard thing now? Because like we're past Revenge of the Sith, the Empire's in full swing, and they want everybody accounted for.
Right.
And accounting for what they've done, where they've been, who they might have ticked off.
Maybe.
So even if you screw up, it's going on your file.
It goes on your personal record. Yeah.
You got to figure this is better than a jail sentence in light of what's,
the alternative. Sure it is.
Right.
I'm going to add one more layer here because in this sequence, the descriptive audio actually refers to Flob as a corporate functionary. Corporate, not government. Does that mean that the Bureau is another outsourcing? Is this still another aspect of the corporate authority? And if it is, does that mean that Uncle Harlow is a high-ranking bureaucrat within the corporate authority?
I never got the impression that the Empire didn't run the corporate, the Primors, if you will. But what I got the impression was that they had absorbed them into their fold, and as long as it was working, they weren't going to change anything. So I feel like this is probably part of the machine that existed during the Republic. And rather than completely revolutionize economy and taxation and the way things are done, we're just going to absorb them into the fold. And now we're under new management, we just add Empire at the end of whatever it used to say.
Well, that's a good point that you do bring that up, because I was going to say the Empire, if nothing else, was famous for slap a new name on it and carry on.
Right. But literally, like, just change the symbol a little. Let's move forward.
I don't feel like that's the case here. I don't feel like, I feel like if this was, maybe I'm just fixated on it for the wrong reasons, but when he says corporate functionary, that still says private to me. That doesn't say government, but potato, I don't know.
These are the bean counters of the Star Wars.
Absolutely. In the bigger scheme, I don't think it means a whole lot, but it does make you kind of go, I don't know.
Another level of cogs in the machine.
Yeah. If anything, though, I think at this point we can safely say, like, Harlow, not a crime boss.
I tend to agree.
Not a crime boss.
I tend to agree. I'm going to punish my silly sister's son by putting him at the lowest common denominator I could find for him.
Let him work his way back up.
And I honestly, I think now that Deidre is in charge of the system, and spoiler, sorry.
Yep.
I really think that's what's going to put her in direct contact with Cyril.
With him. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The unfiltered reports are going to have his name all
absolutely over them. And therefore she's his ticket out and her ticket in, if you will.
Well, I mean, the next line, I mean, he's about to explain, because at the when Flob remarks about Morlana 1, Cyril acknowledges him with a yes, and then he goes on to explain there's a rebel murderer running free because of a laxity and security within the corporate authority.
Right.
He says
tells
that
the truth.
He says he was punished for trying to uphold the law, to do his job and maintain public safety.
Right.
He adds that 2 coworkers are dead because of it, and he believes that there are laws for a reason, and he intends to clear his name and have his record expunged.
So there is a record.
Right. Absolutely, there's a record. For sure there is. Yeah.
Whether or not it's a fully criminal record, but it's a definite service record or something.
Well, I'm thrown off. I'm kind of thrown off here because Flob says, and quite cheerfully, by the way, oh, why don't we start that right now? They start walking down the hallway or that platform a little bit more. And Flob, he starts looking at the pad and he says, well, it's probably best for everyone if we edit this down a bit before we sign you in. So does that mean they're going to like strike Morlana 1 from that? Like that goes back to is this his resume?
Maybe.
And I mean, everybody knows what happened on Morlana 1. And, you know, he even makes a point of, I'm sure your uncle would approve. So again, like, is he helping him or not? Like, I'm a little confused at what's going on here with Flob.
Being the situation they're in, I think he's helping him because like you just told me there's like corruption.
Yeah.
Standards guy. I need laws upheld.
Sure.
Let's make sure that happens.
Okay. Well, Flob remarks that that this is a fresh start with a new beginning as the 2 men stop in front of an empty workstation. Looking at Cyril, Flob says that they just happen to have an immediate opening in fuel purity, and he would hate for Cyril to miss his chance. Our man Flob is played by actor Alex Blake, who you may recognize as Petrovich from Chernobyl. Lots of Chernobyl actors turning up in this series. Yeah. All right. Elsewhere on Coruscant, a public train pulls up to a transit station and passengers begin to debark, including a disguised Clea. She's now dressed in much simpler attire with her hair let down and a hood pulled up over her head. And as she steps off the train, she pauses for a moment to examine a holographic map before she heads off. You guys pick up on this is another reuse of the McLaren Technology Center.
Totally, yep.
This is the spaceport where Cyril came in.
Yep.
Only now we're on the upper level.
Huge money saver.
I do like the way that they did it, though. I love the reuse of it. And again, if you're going to reuse assets that way, does it not make sense in the Empire where everything is like prefab stamp?
Yeah.
One garrison looks like the interior of every Star Destroyer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. At a workstation near the edge of the platform stand 2 droids. I kind of sat on this one for a while looking at these things. I have no idea what they are. I don't think we've seen them before. I kind of call them the beaker droid with the big the guppy lip on them. Yeah, I don't know what they are. The plain silver screams, you know, like 1950s Flash Gordon kind of Buck Rogers era robots. I think they're cool. Yeah, I think they're super cool, but no idea.
Yeah.
I presume that they are just some kind of third-class droid that's performing functions pertaining to the transit system, like
probably a protocol droid after a fashion.
Sure, ticket sales, general information about the train, maybe.
Yeah.
But we also see a man who's dressed in a gray uniform, and part of that uniform is a very distinctive helmet that I said is very akin to the Rebel Fleet Trooper helmet, as well as the New Republic Correctional Corps. I want to call this guy a transit cop because I don't see what other reason he'd be there.
Yeah.
But transit cop. And I thought it was fun. I pulled this together, did a little comparison, a little helmet study here because I find this stuff kind of fascinating. So of course we have our Coruscant transit cop versus our Alderaanian Palace Guard, our Rebel Trooper, and of course the New Republic Correctional Corps. Virtually all, I mean, the Alderaan Palace Guard is probably the most diverse.
Yeah, well, see, until the New Republic, I always assumed that they were Alderaan based.
Well, and it makes sense.
I always assumed none of the other rebels the rebels we encounter on Endor, the rebels we encounter on Scarif, all sort of dressed more like traditional Earth-based military, camos and packs and standard helmets,
they do.
So and then like I thought that kind of was doubled down on by having the guards wear that helmet in Kenobi. So this almost I'm not sure what to think in terms
it's
of
kind of weird
anymore.
because we talked offline before the show tonight, and we talked about could this just be like an iteration of the Imperial Navy Trooper? And
I felt like that too.
I admit that the Navy Trooper and the we'll say the Fleet Trooper, I believe that from a prop making perspective that they started life from the same mold, but
sure,
they are so different in the back end, and the flares on the should have put a picture of the Imperial looking face on.
The droids remind me of the Death Star gunners with the blast shield closed,
flipped up,
on the same helmet.
Yeah, weird looking things anyway.
Yeah,
but anyway,
they all come from the same Bass Space Pro shop.
Well, this is the thing. Like that's why I even said that. I'm like, is this just an off the shelf thing that wasn't made specifically for anybody?
Yeah, why are they all so aerodynamic? It's space, for God's sake.
So they can run quicker.
I thought I saw this guy on a bicycle race.
Right. Tour de Coruscant.
Exactly. We got our first bit of language this week, and it comes from the just above the doors to the train that actually says, please mind the gap as the doors are closing. Thanks, Andy, for doing that for us this week. It looks really good.
Yeah. Bing bong.
Just a little basic, subway car type thing.
And it's written, it's so British. Mind the gap.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mind the gap.
The red zone is for the loading and unloading of passengers.
Right. Well, Clea makes her way out of the transit station down a long corridor. Along the way, she passes a squad of stormtroopers.
Our first stormtroopers.
Along with an Imperial officer. She reaches a junction where she hangs a left and passes a holographic display that flashes a couple of messages. One is an advertisement for snack food, Tasty Pizzos, while the other one is a government directive reminding citizens to carry their chain code. We've seen
ISB.
Right, and we've seen chain codes before when they were introduced back in the Bad Batch.
Yeah,
nice to see that consistency here. Outside the train station, Clea crosses a plaza to a long bridge leading to a much less densely populated area. At the top of a ramp, she pauses to let a couple of people pass by. And by the way, anybody else pick up on this was the same area where Cyril went home to his mother's apartment?
It looked close to
it. Yeah. She lets a couple of people pass by before she looks down to see a very distinctive chalk marking on the ground, a clear signal to the right person, of course, which she is.
Does that look like a loth cat to anyone else?
Oh, now that you say that.
Yeah.
With the ears on it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was, for me anyway, kind of reminiscent of Independence Day Resurgence.
Oh, okay.
Where they all drawing the circle with the line through it.
Oh,
if
that's also
you're looking at it that way.
That's also
and then,
interesting.
The movie with Will Smith, what was it? Enemy of the State.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's doing the mark on the side of the the newspaper box.
Yes. All right. Well, back at the central office, Dedra barges into what I want to call a records office. It's got two more of those droids, probably the same two from the transit station, but she catches attendant Felzonis, who's asleep at his post. The man jumps to attention, and after telling Felzonis to fix his uniform, Dedra says that she needs a multi-sector data blend that goes back 2 years and cross-references Imperial naval bases and repair yards against any missing communications, navigation, and targeting equipment. Felzonis kind of swallows as he nods, when he asks Dedra for which star system that she's interested. He's a little dismayed when she says all systems. And she tells him that this report is to be kept confidential and to be sent exclusively to her office, and she demands his discretion in the matter and then orders him to get started. Felzonis is played by actor Raghavan Vasan, who's had a ton of roles on British television. However, you may have seen him in the live-action Dumbo, where he played the nephew of Pramesh, the snake charmer.
Still got to watch that one.
It's not bad. It's all right. Back on Aldhani, Cinta, who's now out of her imperial disguise, uncovers what appears to be some kind of makeshift folded-up speeder. When a looming shadow blocks out the daylight, she stops what she's doing to look up, only to see a Star Destroyer with a TIE Fighter escort pass overhead.
You want to say announcement?
Well, there's the blockade that was talked about.
Yeah.
Back on Coruscant, Clea arrives at her meeting place, and surprisingly, Vel is there waiting for her.
I was caught off guard by
me too.
Her appears like,
me too.
Wait a minute, is that?
Well, now she's dressed very fashionably, complete with a full hairstyle and makeup. And like from a distance, as you say, Andy, you're like, who the heck is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Oh, okay.
So I mean,
the first time through, I watched on my phone, which is very tiny.
Sure.
4 a.m, and
Yep.
I thought Clea might have been Leia from some of the shots.
Wow. Yeah.
I really did until she got here and started speaking. I thought, oh wow, we've really gone someplace cool.
Yeah.
Not that this isn't very cool.
Well, I mean, do you guys remember the figures? Was it 3 months that they said the preparation for the Aldhani mission?
Yeah.
Right.
That means that Vel has been clearly Vel has a life here on Coruscant.
Right.
So she's had to explain to someone or many someones where she's been for 3 months. So for her to turn up here dressed like a socialite or like a high class citizen is like, whoa,
right.
Didn't see that coming.
It lends weight to our theory that she may be Lucian's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Vel coldly asks, where is he? And Clea tells her that even she shouldn't be there, adding that neither of them should. Vel tells Clea that the money is safe, while Clea says that she knows because it's already been moved. But she and Luthen, are worried about the Rono freighter. Vel tells her plainly that it's been buried and it's gone for good. But Clea pushes her, are you sure? Well, Vel insists that it is, and Clea looks away for a moment before she looks back at Vel and says, he read your message. Vel remarks that she really thought that he'd be there, but Clea coldly tells her that while every loss is different, they're all the same. And she tells Vel and us as the audience that she personally recruited Terramin, and that he, along with Nemec and Gorn, will all be remembered. Well, with a bit of a sideways look, Vel questions, that's it? And Clea says that Luthen actually had doubts about Skeen, but his death is now one less thing to worry about. Looking away from Clea, Vel asks if she's heard from Cinta. But Clea pointedly tells her she is doing what she was told. There's a distinctive tone here in Clea's voice.
A little bit of admonishment.
Is she trying to say that Vel maybe isn't doing as she's told? Like, is there something else going on there?
I kind of read into it like that she's aware of the relationship and that's not appropriate.
Oh, that's an interesting angle too. That they should not be romantically.
Yeah.
That's it. That's entirely possible too.
Or is there some other task that she is supposed to be completing off-world right now?
I don't know. Clearly, there's something else for Cinta. That's why Cinta never left. Everybody left Aldhani, and I mean, the way that the operation rolled out, it looks like Cinta was never meant to leave.
Yeah.
So there must be something left undone for her to do.
Because it's going to get
there or elsewhere.
Tough to get off planet now.
Well, with the blockade, there you go. Yeah. All right. With sorry, where are we at here? Well, then her tone changes as Clea blurts out that receiving messages is just as dangerous as sending them, and Vel should keep that in mind. But then she changes the direction of the conversation, telling Vel that they have a loose end in the form of Cassian Andor, whom she knows as Clem. She tells Vel that she has to find him, but Vel corrects her by saying, you mean kill him. Clea then takes a step forward and she tells her that they can't have him running around with Luthen in his head, adding that this is what revolution looks like. Clea finishes by telling Vel that she'll send whatever information they have on Cassian and then walks away, leaving Vel standing there alone with her thoughts. This almost parallels, I mean, certainly not in the subject, but in tone of the exchange that we just saw Luthen have with Mon Mothma.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And again, this is where, I mean, I watched it and I think I messaged you guys immediately. I'm like, there's no way that she's not his daughter. There's no way. I thought he'd be here. Like, someone's got daddy issues.
Yeah.
And maybe rightly so. Yeah, exactly.
Here, go steal this for me.
Right. But yeah, send your own daughter out there 3 months planning an operation that she may never come back from.
That would be an argument against Luthien being a Jedi.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
We'll put the kibosh on that thought.
All right, back on Eldani, Cinta races down a mountain slope on her makeshift speeder scooter. But to where she's going is anyone's guess. I like the speeder design here. I found it very cool, very like garage kind of cobbled together. I got vibes of Enfys Nest's kind of swoop speeder along with a droid step kind of thing going on. It
really reminded me of the speeders from the Rebels pilot.
Yeah. I guess
because they have that platform on the back with the case.
Yeah.
I halfway thought when she was unfolding it that it was going to be just like a folded up speeder bike. Like
you know what? I totally got that too. Yeah,
just based on the front flaps there.
Yeah.
But then
the steering vanes. That's a pretty common thing though in Star Wars. The little triangular fins. Yeah, the fins all have that sort of generic kind of shape to them. Anyway, it's a cool thing. I like it. We didn't get the ship this week. That Cassian bought from Quad Paws. No. I guess it was too expensive to animate.
30 grand.
Who knows? It's out there somewhere. There is a ship out there somewhere.
That's twice the price.
All right. We cut to the streets of Ferrix, where a hooded, and it's nighttime, by the way, where a hooded Cassian makes his way through the streets. At home, Marva sleeps in a chair while B2 rests in his charging station. When Cassian tries to open the front door, Marva, now startled from her sleep and armed with a blaster, points it at the door. Who's there? B2 rolls out from his station, and together he and Marva go to the door and they let Cassian inside. Shocked at the sight of her son, she ushers him inside and embraces him like any parent would, relieved to have a lost child come home. The three settle in while Cassian lowers the drapes and Marva puts on a kettle. She tells him, you can't stay, while B2 adds that there's troopers now. When Cassian retorts, that was fast, Marva tells him that, yeah, they showed up the very next day and now Ferrix is under Imperial authority. She also tells him, you shouldn't be here. Now that's the second time?
Yeah.
And Cassian professes that someone turned him in. Marva exclaims, oh, you don't know. And Cassian says, no, what? Well, she and B2 both say Tim at the same time, that it was Tim Carlo that turned him in. And Marva adds that, well, there's no point in stewing over it because he's dead now. When Cassian asks her, how does she know all of this? Marva tells him quite matter-of-factly that everyone knows. Shocked, Cassian questions if Bix knew, but Marva sets the record straight by telling him that Bix was actually coming to warn him, and Tim was either trying to stop her or catch her. The details of which aren't really clear, but she says that she's heard it both ways. And for a third time, Marva tells him again, you can't be here. The Empire is there to stay, and they won't be going away. But Cassian beams with a smile as he tells her that they won't have to worry about that anymore because he got the big score and they can get out of there and go anywhere they want. Marva looks confused while she listens, but B2 seems enthusiastic about it, and he says, when can they go? Cassian says, we'll leave tonight. They'll get out of the cold and damp, and they'll find somewhere warm and easy. Looking at Marva lovingly, he tells her it's going to be different now. But Marva looks back at him with a sad smile. And then she gets up to go and turn off the kettle, and Cassian says, "What's wrong?" She tells him that it's just a lot to take in, and Cassian reassures her that all they need to do is take what they can carry, and they can be off. Marva says that she's just really surprised by all of it, and she's tired. And Cassian acknowledges, of course, it's late, and she should rest while he checks in on Bix, and then the three of them can leave first thing in the morning. And then Marva says, okay, let's do that. Back on Coruscant, Mon Mothma's Senate residence is abuzz as she and Perrin are playing host to some kind of gala event.
Another party,
yeah. More importantly, to her childhood friend, Tay Kolma, is in attendance, and the two make small talk about being home on Chandrilla and how they always seem to miss each other. And Tay makes a joke that he's not hard to find, especially for a senator.
At first, I thought they'd recast Senator Valorum.
Really funny that you say that. That you say that. That's going to come up here in a second. I actually thought that just like Cassian and Bix may have been romantically linked, I wonder if this is a high school boyfriend.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mon apologizes for being a bad friend, and Tay tells her that's nonsense. Her life has taken her all this way here, and neither of them are who they once were. Well, Mon says, have I changed that much? And Tay says, we've all had to adapt. Well, the two, they talk about life on Coruscant, and Tay says that he just can't imagine living there with no escape. Mon tells him, well, it can be challenging at times. And Tay says that she carries it well. There is chatter around the room, and I try, it's really hard to hear, but there is a very clear voice off in the background that actually says, Finis Valorum, in reference to the former Supreme Chancellor, played by Terrence Stamp, General Zod, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, who was the subject of the no confidence vote of 32 BBY that led to the election of Palpatine as his successor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the next room, Perrin sits on a sofa with some other guests while Lita stands over them on a platform behind. You can see Lita mouth to her father how she doesn't want to be at the party, and Perrin kind of mouths back at her, go ask Mum. Steering Tay into yet another chamber, Mon Mothma asks if she can call on their old kinship and count on his trust in something. But the two are interrupted when Lita approaches. Mon reintroduces them, saying that they've met before back home through Tay's sisters. And in the introduction, Mon points out a small but very significant detail that Tay is a banker on Chandrilla. Lita can't recall meeting him and changes the subject, noting that her father said that she needed to ask her if she could be excused from the party. And tersely, Mon agrees, but at the same time, she like laser daggers Perrin in the next room. Like,
put that on me.
Yeah.
In the previous episodes that I missed, did we discuss Leta at all? Did we talk about her lineage? Her first appearance? Dark Empire source book briefly from the West End Games.
I missed that completely.
Yeah, and so canonized. I guess maybe a first appearance would be in the Thrawn novels then, which I can't corroborate, don't recall, but certainly I looked it up, and she's from the Dark Empire source book, and so we've canonized some more legends. Love it.
I don't think I picked up on that.
I don't think we did. I think that was
I think that's we missed that one. Yeah. With Lita excused, Mon turns her attention back to Tay and tells him that she spent a lot of time thinking about the conversation that she's about to have, and how she wants to tell him something that only 3 people in the galaxy know about. Mon Mothma being 1, Luthen being 2, Bail Organa 3? Question mark?
Well, I'm going to say it's Luthen's possible stepwife.
Oh, do you think Mon Mothma knows that? Oh, I suppose so. Sure.
She knows.
Clea would be the obvious 3. Sure. Okay.
I mean, alive, because this all revolves around that cutscene, Revenge of the Sith, where Padme basically
absolutely
talks about the
yeah.
thousand and that group that she's beginning to set up. So
that's right. I think I made a note about that here. No, I didn't, but you're right. Padme basically Bail Organa and Genevieve O'Reilly's Mon Mothma and the senator from the Gorman senator
right.
basically have a secret meeting that they invite Padme to, and she's like, listen, I believe in whatever you're doing, but I can't be part of it because if they ever come, I can't tell them what I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I feel like this is sort of, it's almost like they're getting to revisit that piece that it made it into the book. It didn't make it into the film.
That's right. Right.
Well, Tay asks her why would she want to do that, and Mon Mothma says it's because that she needs his help. Tay asks her if it's personal or political, and when she tells him that it's the latter, he urges her to hesitate because, as he previously pointed out, they've both changed, adding that he's grown weary of the Empire, and Mon Mothma might find his politics a bit strong for her taste. Tay says that her world is inescapably linked to the Empire and suggests that she might be surprised to find out how far some people back home have taken their political allegiances. Oh, so he then sips on his drink and apologizing, saying that he may have had a little too much to drink. But Mon says, drink up and smile. She tells him to pretend as if they're talking about their childhood, which catches Tay a little bit off guard as he says, I'm not sure I understand. Meanwhile, Perrin has moved around the party, always remaining within eye shot of the two, and I can't tell if this is out of jealousy, spying, or both.
I would think both.
Yeah, I think both.
Yeah.
Because we know who his inner circle of friends are, right?
Well, knowing that we're watching a spy thriller too, and almost maybe trope for the genre as well, but there's always betrayal.
Oh yeah.
And so I find myself like not trusting Clea, not trusting Tay, and like, you know what I mean? Because I'm waiting for somebody's other shoe to drop, and the fact that he's so open about his anti-imperial allegiances before she puts it to question, that worries me about the character, because even now that there's still a Senate, there's still all this political backbiting still going on, but it's not a complete totalitarian regime yet. What we get from this, and what I didn't really understand, because you kind of get the impression from the Order 66 events that we've seen, especially Bad Batch, etc., which is the second Order 66 kicked in, the Empire took over, and but what we realize now is that for the first 15 years of the Empire, they were basically the Empire light.
Yeah, I mean, in prep for tonight's show, I actually went back and I watched the scene in the briefing room on the first Death Star. The Senate has been swept away, or the Senate has been dissolved. I mean, that's
hours or days before the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. Well, Mon acknowledges that, no, Tay, you don't understand. She says that when people look at her and when they hear what is said about her, it all paints a clear picture of who she is. A polite and sometimes indecisive senator who spends her days fighting and failing to protect separatist do-gooders. And she battles imperial overreach. She says that some would call it an irritation. Tay tries to apologize, thinking that he's made her angry, but Mon is quick to correct him. She says no, he has in fact set her free. Tay is now genuinely confused, while she tells him that she spent the entire day wondering if she could confide in him, and then she begins to lay it all out. She calls her public appearance a projection, a lie, an affront. Tay falters for a moment with his mouth agape, while Mon reminds him to smile and keep up the appearances of two old friends. As the two step into a smaller lounge off of the main room, she tells him that she's learned from Palpatine, if I show you the stone in my hand, you miss the knife at your throat. Sitting down on a long couch, Tay asks, where is this all going? And she explains that the Grand Vizier, Masamida, has infiltrated her separatist coalition meetings. Her Senate-assigned driver, Cloris, is an ISB plant that reports on her secret humanitarian programs. She adds that they know they're watching her, and in a surprising twist, she says that's what she wants. Because if they fixate on what she's doing publicly, there's a good chance that they'll miss what she's really doing. And Tay asks her flatly, what are you really doing? Staring him dead in the eye, she says, raising money. She tells him that she needs a way to access her family fortune because the suspicions that are raised against her have made it impossible for her to do it herself anymore without adding to it. Tay asks her what she's raising money for, and Mon bold-face lies to him by saying it's a Chandrillan outreach program. She says that she will publicly ask him to become the chairman and that the position will require him to make personal visits to Coruscant. Spotting Perrin, who's now standing at a table just outside the lounge, Mon tells Tay that the whole thing will appear to be yet just another one of her benevolent and useless irritations. Looking back at Tay, she tells him that she's explored the alternatives and he is, in fact, her best shot. But Tay says, you still haven't answered my question. And Mon says, and I won't, because he's better off not knowing. And then parroting his own words, she looks at Tay as she says, or perhaps you find my politics a bit strong for your taste. And there it is. That's that scene out of, was it Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones? I don't remember.
Revenge of the Sith.
It was Revenge of the Sith. That's right. Yeah. I can't tell you what I don't know. Well, just then, Perrin enters the lounge, and Mon quickly tells Tay that he knows nothing about what she's doing, and Perrin is not to be trusted. Perrin interrupts the two.
Exactly what I was saying.
Don't trust him.
Anyway.
Perrin interrupts the two and makes some small talk about two old friends reminiscing about school days, and Tay asks, are we that predictable? Perrin says there's a reunion coming up, while Mon Mothma smiles and says, don't remind me. But it looks like Perrin might also be doing some mental gymnastics here because he answers with, she pretends not to care, but we both know better, don't we? Before pleasantly requesting that Mon go with him because there's a few guests that require some special attention. And as Mon and Perrin wade back into the party, Tay sits back down on the couch and breathes a heavy sigh. I am so disappointed that we didn't get that dinner party with the Viziers.
I looked in the background to see if there was a
so did I. I'm like, who's here? Who's here? Anybody here? Anybody?
I mean, she did say they might have to reschedule, so it could still be pending. I have some questions about Palpatine.
Okay, sure.
Do we think that it's public knowledge that he's a Sith Lord?
No.
No, I tend to agree with that. But it is public knowledge that Vader is a Sith Lord.
The Dark Lord, yeah.
And it's furthermore, it's public knowledge in certain high sects of the Empire that he was a former Jedi Anakin Skywalker.
That's true.
I mean, Thrawn finds it out on his own. Several other Imperial officers kind of find it out on their own. But and you just watched the scene. There's a line, I think it's Tag says it. Your ancient devotion or your devotion to that ancient religion.
Yeah.
Let you conjure up the stolen like he knows.
Yeah.
And her line that when he shows you the stone, you don't see the knife at the throat.
Yeah.
That seems to suggest that she might know that. I mean, it's certainly not if he's not the Sith Lord. Which,
I mean, I thought the public perception was that he
the
was
Jedi
attacked.
tried to kill him.
Yeah, and that
Right.
explains his disfigurement.
Well, in what is it, Revenge of the Sith, when he first takes the podium, he's like, their attack has left me scarred, and this is what I am now.
Right, that's right.
Mm-hmm. They do make a point in the A New Hope novel to say that he hasn't been seen in years in public at the beginning of the New Hope novel.
So granted it, and then just kind of ruled from the shadows.
And that's the impression. They make a big deal about calling the Republic a tree that rots from within, and you can't tell until it's too late. I just, that line about, like, so she doesn't know he's a Sith Lord. She certainly knows that Order 66 occurrence wasn't at face value the Jedi attacking. It just raises some questions for me.
Certainly, I got the impression from the last episode that he was not present in the Senate when she was speaking. Also, that building was so empty.
Yeah,
hugely empty.
It reminded me of Canadian Parliament.
Right, where it's just like you're going through the motions now.
Seriously, there's nobody. Right. The Prime Minister's not there. You know, the only people, half the opposition is there, and like where is everybody?
And the second there's something more interesting than hearing a senator from Chandrilla
they all get up
drone,
and
they get up and leave.
Awful. That being said, I do have hopes that we will get another Senate piece where maybe, if we're lucky, he might make an appearance.
If only to strike down her order on trying to help those people.
Yeah, maybe. I am nervous. I'm worried for Tay. Because I do think Perrin is a spy. And I do think that he's smarter than he's let on. His whole he seems to know more about your goings on than I do. You know, and she says, what does she say? I didn't tell you because I didn't think you'd be interested because it was charitable.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing something pretty great here. Like you say, I worry about Tay. I worry about Val and Luthien and Lucian, and other characters. But what they do a super good job of here is making you worry about characters that actually survive. That like I feel like, like the stakes are, it's kind of like watching a Bond movie when you go, okay, no matter what happens, nothing's going to happen to Bond. Like he's dangling out of a plane by his ankle. Nothing's going to happen to Bond. So I'm not worried about it at all. Like I'm legit worried about Cassian Andor, even though I know he survives. I know when he dies.
That's right.
But they're so good at creating that tension that you really go, what horrible thing could happen to Mon Mothma here?
You know, I'm not so much worried for her as I am for him. I think his days are numbered.
It's a funny thing too. Like Ezra goes to Imperial Prison like twice in the run of Rebels, and I never once went, "Oh geez, oh no." And I certainly am like, how's our hero going to get out of this one?
How's he going to get out of this? Yeah, that's a good point. Take Holma. That's actor Ben Miles. Ben Miles actually played Maslow in the film Ninja Assassin. As well as Cass Jones in the live-action Speed Racer, Go Speed Racer, and he played Dascombe in V for Vendetta.
Oh, crazy!
If you remember any of those roles. All right, back on Ferrix, Cassian scales the wall into the compound surrounding Bix's shop, picking up a stone. He taps a signal on a piece of metal just a couple of feet below the window on the main building. Anybody pick up on the ting, 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 ting?
Shaving haircut.
I get a chuckle out of that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. A light comes on inside, and Cassian moves over to a doorway. An intercom sputters to life with some audible static, and Cassian leans in to say, "Hey." From the other side of the intercom, Bix is surprised to hear Cassian, and she says, "What are you doing here?" Leaning against the doorway, Cassian looks back at the wall, and the wall that he just scaled, by the way, and asks Bix, if she remembers when her father caught him climbing over the same wall. And Bix says, "Well, this is the last place you should be." And chuckling, Cassian says, "I think those were his exact words." Bix tells him it's not safe there. There's a theme here. Remember the last time when we first meet Cassian on Ferrix, and it's like everybody we talk to has the same backstory for him.
Right.
The same word, same thing. You can't be here. You can't be here. You can't be
right.
here. really reinforcing that.
Nobody wants to be associated with him at this point.
No.
You get the sense this has been his home for years too. Like he used to come here when he was a teenager to
like 10 plus.
Right.
10 plus years for sure.
Right.
All right. You can't be here. Bix tells him it's not safe there. And Cassian, he pauses for a moment, and the next time he speaks, it's a single word. Tim. Well, Bix theorizes that Tim, now still, this is from the other side of the door through the intercom, she theorizes that Tim must have thought that she and Cassian were back together. And when Cassian asks why would he think that, Bix says, you can't be as surprised as I was. I kind of got that vibe too, that there was maybe a rekindling, that there was a flame still burning for one, if not both of them.
Yeah.
So
if you like Tim did, left that bar like moments before.
Right.
Yeah.
He missed out on that crucial, pushback moment.
Push the hand away, right?
The moment in the garage with the two of them when she's working on the engine. And I just got like I thought she was still holding a bit of a candle for him. And then, got drunk and went to get a booty call that night.
Yeah, maybe. Certainly if she's, 30 and he's been here for 10 years, like maybe, could have been, your first love, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
maybe. Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's always some part of that candle that burns always.
Excuse me. Yeah. Well, the door then slides open and Bix is standing there. When Cassian spots the gash over her right eye, he says, what happened? And Bix says that she got it from running into a wall like I do. It's been a while since she was arrested by the corpos. So and it's on the wrong side when they chained her to that wall. So presumably she's been interrogated.
You know what? I didn't catch that. I actually thought that was a benchmark of how quickly the story has been progressing.
I don't think that's from the arrest. I think that is she's been interrogated.
You're 100%. That's the wrong side of the head, eh?
Yeah, because she doesn't. I honestly,
no.
Her two friends come after all the guards and everything go.
They handcuff her to that pipe on the wall,
and they leave her there.
Yeah,
right.
But then
her friends at the end of the scene, they come get her.
She was detained. She was detained there.
Yeah, right. And as she's reaching out for Tim's body, they're like, "No, we gotta go."
I don't remember her being injured there.
Well, she gets
the corpo shoves her head into the.
Is that so? Are we saying that's the same wound as the?
I thought it was. Now that you say it's not the same side of the head.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to go back.
And I thought that was an indicator of how
of time. Okay,
rapid fire things have been progressing.
It doesn't make sense though. Well, I guess it does.
Because like Marva says too, they showed up the day after.
You're right. And it was only 3 days on Aldani.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It was only 3 days. Well, maybe it is the same wound then.
And because hyper travel is instantaneous.
Yeah, well, it is now. That's right. We can go wherever we want. Star Wars Galaxy.
5 seconds.
All right. Like Marva before her, Bix tells Cassian once again, you can't be here.
Yeah, clubbing it. Cassian
says the troopers won't catch him. Not here. But Bix says that they won't have to because someone will turn him in. And Cassian asks, who? And she says, well, everyone blames you for what happened.
Mm-hmm.
She says, you killed 2 corpos and came home to hide. It put the entire town at risk. And now there are Imperials in the street. But Cassian rebukes her, saying that if Tim had kept his mouth shut, and Bix, she's very quick to cut him off. This, that, you, me, whatever. Righteously angry at her, righteously angry at Cassian, Bix calls him out. She says, you scam, you borrow, you lie, and you disappear. In defense, Cassian fires back, saying that her crazy boyfriend tried to get him killed, and now he's the villain? Well, staring back at him unblinking, Bix tells him he needs to get as far away from Ferrix as he can. And it takes a second before the weight of what she says sets in, but the way that she tells him and the way that she looks at him, that's like a final get the F out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's personal.
Yeah,
like,
he
for
did.
your
He
own
did. He doesn't
personal
even
sake.
once offer her like, come with me.
Yeah. All right. So it takes a few seconds, and when the weight of it sets in, but when it does, Cassian sits back and he scoffs. I will. He gets up to leave, and he tells her that she won't have to worry about him anymore. Like the typical stuff that, teenagers do when they fight, when it's a bad breakup.
Yeah.
I'll leave. You'll never have to worry about me ever again. And Bix, she hangs her head in obvious pain. Now, with his back to her, Cassian pauses, and he stands there for a moment before he turns back to Bix and says, I need to know about the buyer. An obvious reference to Luthen. Cassian asks, who is he? And Bix shakes her head, saying, I don't know. Cassian accuses her of lying, but Bix insists that she's not. She tells him that Pack introduced them, but he doesn't know either. In case you forgot, Pack was the shop owner where the pirate radio was hidden in the chimney.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure he's the one that actually gets there and uncuffs her.
Yeah, I think that's right too. It's him and the son, I think, actually show up. Yeah,
that's right.
For Bix, it was simple. She would radio in, and sometimes they might actually respond. Cassian says that the buyer knew all about him, and he asks how. Well, Bix admits, yes, the buyer did know that the corporals were coming after him, but they didn't learn that from her. Looking down at her, Cassian says that, well, if you ever talk to him again, let him know that I held up my end of the deal, and he needs to forget about me, adding, that goes for everybody. Bix drops her gaze, and she shakes her head as she says, I've done it before. Propping a foot up, Cassian digs into his boot, and he removes a pouch. Holding it up, he tells Bix it's 12,000 credits, and it should be enough to cover everything that he owes to everyone. Zahn, Nurchi, Brasso, and Dima. Leaving the money on a nearby crate, Cassian goes back over the wall the same way that he came in, while Bix tells him to be careful as she watches him go. That's too bad. I thought there'd be a little bit more, but again, in light of what's just happened.
Well, I don't see her out of the fold yet. Like,
no,
I don't
made
either.
An action figure.
That's right.
And
we haven't seen that outfit yet.
No,
Val is coming looking for Cassian. Where are you going to look?
Yeah.
At the original contact point.
It's entirely possible. And especially considering that, Luthen's already talked to her, and if Luthen is Vel's dad, they're going to have to get their daddy-daughter thing shelved or resolved.
Yeah. Not to mention that Deidre's people will probably be starting the search here as well.
Yeah, of course they will. I mean, who's going to get to her first?
There's going to be a shitstorm coming.
Prefect, what's his nuts? The army captain. That can I be prefect?
You sure can.
Stepping out onto Rick's road, Cassian pulls up his hood, keeping his head on a swivel, looking for trouble. A few dozen meters down the road, he can hear some radio chatter, and taking a look, he sees a pair of stormtroopers that are headed in his direction. While quickening his pace, Cassian ducks behind a stone wall, and he steals a quick look back over his shoulder. When he doesn't immediately hear or see anything, he hugs the wall with his back, and he waits. And as the sound of marching boots approach, we cut to a daylight shot of the same street. There's a light dusting of snow on the ground while the white armored boots of Republic clones march past. At the same time, we can hear this ethereal voice of Clem Andor say, "This is not our fight, Cass," as he clasps the adult Cassian Andor by the shoulder, who's apparently in his own reverie right now.
Mm-hmm.
Clem reassures him, don't worry, they won't be here long. Then the camera changes perspective, and we can see the marching clones from over the shoulder of a teenage Cassian and his father. Clem tells him they're just going to raise their silly flag and fly away. From off camera, we can hear a man shout, "Long live the Republic!" while another shouts, "Free Ferrix!" Clem tells his son not to move and stay here as he ventures out into the street to try and calm the men. But as he steps out, the men have already thrown rocks at the back of the marching column. Well, the black uniformed Imperial officer commanding the clone unit orders them to a halt, and the rear element performs an about-face. The officer then orders the rear element to ready arms, and the clones take aim at the 3 men in the street. Well, as adult Cassian looks at his adoptive father, Clem looks back at his teenage son. We cut back to the present where Cassian, still pressed to the wall, is lost in his reverie, but he's quickly brought back to reality as the pair of stormtroopers march past without incident. What an interesting back and forth from adult to. I mean, if you're going to use a memory cutscene like that, I think that was cleverly done the way they did that.
Really nice that they just like triggered it with a sound.
Yeah,
like that marching sound.
Well, when the camera is facing Cassian, it's Cassian in the present, and when it's not, it's Cassian of the past. Like that's.
Do you think that's a sort of a clever way of them not using de-aging technology?
I hope so.
Sure, on top of everything else.
Right, right.
Sure, cost saving.
Right. No. I mean, so that we can get those big like episode 6 shots. They can cut budgets wherever they want if they want to keep doing that stuff.
I think that creatively speaking, artistically speaking, that was very well.
It's a really good choice.
Yeah. Well, back at Marva's, B2 sits in his charging dock. When the front door slides open, the droid announces he's back before rolling out to meet Cassian. B2 exclaims that he was coming to find him, and Cassian says, "Here I am." Looking around the house, Cassian remarks, "You haven't done much packing." And B2 tells him that Marva says they can't go. The camera then shifts focus to Marva, who's standing in the back room, and she tells B to be quiet. Cassian steps around the droid and asks her, "What is this?" Marva tells him plainly that she's not going. And Cassian is confused, saying, "It's not safe here. You said it yourself. It's all come undone." And Marva nods, "I know." Cassian reminds her that there's an Imperial barracks on Rick's Road. And Marva, who uses her cane to lift the drapes and look outside, says, "Good luck to them." Still confused, Cassian questions, "You want to live under that?" And Marva says, "It's happening everywhere." Cassian tells her they'll find a place that the Empire hasn't ruined yet. But Marva tells him she's already there. That place is in her head, and no matter how many barracks the Empire builds, they'll never find her. When Cassian asks her what's left to keep her on Ferrix, she boldly tells him the rebellion. Flabbergasted, Cassian says, "What?" And Marva tells him Ferrix has been hiding long enough. Cassian scoffs, "So now you're taking on the Empire?" And Marva says, "Laugh if you want to," but Cassian calls it madness. Marva shoots back, "It's not." She calls it overdue and probably doomed, adding that she's too old and I don't care anymore. She tells Cassian that for the last 13 years, every time she's walked down Rick's Road, she's turned off before she got to the square. And she would take the long way home so she wouldn't have to think about Clem hanging there. Cutting back to the snowy covered roads of the Ferrix of the past, teenage Cassian trudges through the square at Rick's Road while a body hangs there swaying gently. The boy carries a pipe-like weapon behind his back.
It reminded me of the cudgel.
It did, yeah. Me too.
Yeah,
me too. Yeah. Cutting back to Marva's face lights up as she tells Cassian how she heard about the attack on Aldhani yesterday, asking, "Do you know what I'm talking about?" And Cassian looks away with a bit of a smile, and he's like, "Yeah." There's this moment where, she's like, you can see how lit up she is, how beaming she is at what's happened. And he doesn't even have the guts to tell her that it was me, Mom.
She probably wouldn't believe him.
Maybe not.
It's one of the it's a really well written scene where there's something for her to be amazingly proud of, and I don't job. Right, but I honestly think he feels like she wouldn't believe me if I told her. And not like when the person says it first, you're almost like, if I say it now, it's going to seem fake.
I got the impression that the smile on Cassian's face was the satisfaction of knowing that she's indirectly proud of him.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, cutting back to the snowy covered roads, the snowy covered Rick's road, and teenage Cassian has revealed the pipe as he continues to move forward. Then we snap cut back to Marva's, where Cassian continues. Yeah, the garrison at Aldani. Marva obviously or absolutely beams when she tells Cassian that when she heard the news, she put on her best coat and walked through the square with a smile on her face. Cassian smirks back at her, but quickly wipes it from his face, and he looks at the floor. Cutting back to the town square, teenage Cassian approaches 4 clone troopers that are gathered around a small fire. Raising his club, he charges them while the clones raise their blasters and take aim at him. At the same time, from the present, we can hear Marva's voice telling the adult Cassian that if there are heroes brave enough to take on a whole Imperial garrison, then she's brave enough to stick it out here.
It's so crazy how she doesn't know it's him. It's so...
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Man, it's poignant. Also, assault of Imperial officer right there.
There it is. Yeah. They're standing outside the hotel, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The same, where we saw Blevin and the army officer standing. Well, back in the present, Cassian downplays the Aldani incident as nothing more than a robbery. But Marva, who's still beaming, smiles as she tells her son that people are standing up. Cynically, Cassian sneers, yeah, and getting killed for it. But if nothing else, Marva is optimistic as she proclaims that there's work to be done that will need to be done.
And which echoes Lucian's, yes, people are going to need to suffer. That's to be expected.
Yeah.
That's the same line, only just approached differently. Like this, the parallels in this scene and that scene are just crazy.
When Cassian asks, and what is that? She looks at him with a smirk of her own and she says, whatever it takes, adding that she's been laying around waiting to die long enough. Now, B2, who has been quietly listening the whole time, drops his head and emits a sorrowful chirp at those words.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was really like, oh. Star Wars, if nothing else, has done such a great job at conveying emotion from an automaton.
Yeah.
And it comes through in spades here, especially when he's like, can I talk now? No.
If your dog could talk.
Bad. Yeah.
If your dog could talk, man.
Well, I mean, look at the way Cassian even strokes his head when he comes in the front door, hugging Marvin and petting him like the family pet. Well, Cassian tells her that she can't beat them, but Marva slams her cane into the floor. Not if I run away. Staring at her son, she tells him that he has a different path, and she's not judging him for it, remarking everything he's been through and all the things that were taken away from him before he even started. Marva tells him to take all the money he's come into and go somewhere and find peace. But Cassian exclaims that he won't have peace because he'll worry about her all the time. And Marva looks at her son with a smile and she tells him that's just love and there's nothing you can do about that. Cassian swallows hard, holding back his grief. And with tears welled up in her eyes, Marva tells him that she's never loved anything the way that she loves him. And she's never fretted on anything more. But this time, he can't stay and she can't go.
Yeah.
As Marva stands, calls her Ma. Yeah. As Marva stands there with her head held high, Cassian shakes his head at her at a loss. B2 lifts his head and he asks for permission to speak, and Marva yells no before imploring Cassian to tell her that he understands. But he doesn't, and he's crushed. Marva looks down and says, you'll see. And it's more like she's trying to convince herself at this point than anybody else in the room.
Also, Cassian, the legacy line right out of Rogue One. Tell me you understand.
Yeah. Cassian averts his eyes as he brushes past Marva on his way out. And she stops him. Just one more thing. And with her back to him, she tells Cassian, stop searching for your sister. It's all just a fantasy. There were no survivors on Kenari. She goes on adding that what happened there wasn't his responsibility, that he was just a child. Staring sidelong at Marva's back, Cassian says, "I'm coming back." And he turns to leave. And as the door hisses open, without looking back at him, Marva says, "Of course you are." That's a wild scene.
Wild.
All right, back at the central office, Major Partagaz has convened another meeting of the sector supervisors. And at the moment, he's grilling Supervisor Young as to why his detention numbers are not on par with his neighboring sectors. With 3 theories on the table, Young asks for the Major's guidance, and Major Partagaz then orders a full audit of all the hyperspace lanes leading to Ord Mantell, and he expects the report on his desk by the same time tomorrow.
Got to get some of that Mantell mix.
Mantell mix, yep. Well, he then turns his attention to Supervisor Blevin, noting that Blevin seems like he's rather eager this morning. He asks, "Am I mistaken?" And Blevin says, "No, sir. No, you're not." And the Major says, "Oh, good news, is it?" And Blevin, still with an axe to grind, says, "I'm afraid not." He says that he wants to lodge a formal charge, and he wants to lay it against Supervisor Miro for violating her sector protocols as laid out in the ISB Code of Conduct, saying that her overreach, the overreach for which she was previously reprimanded, compromises Imperial safety to the degree that silence is no longer possible. Really makes it sound like he's a by-the-book kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As long as it benefits him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this also tells us that the confidentiality she implored to that record keeper.
Felzonis.
Yeah, somebody slipped
to Sleepy McFixture uniform.
Yep.
All right. The Major questions his subordinate, asking if he thinks that this is the appropriate forum to bring this forward, and Blevin thinks yes, it is. Well, Partagaz says this is a serious charge. But Blevin thinks that the Major will share his sense of urgency.
He wants an audience, right?
He does, yeah.
It's like, I want to humiliate you in front of everybody I can.
Of course,
Partagaz is actually awesome. Like he's using the Socratic method of controlling the conversation. The way he says to her, how do you feel about having your credentials,
your integrity,
like ventilated, like the way he uses language. I really like this character, even though I know that he's a villain.
He's pretty slimy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about his sliminess here in a bit. He asks Dedra if she minds having her integrity publicly ventilated, and she responds that no, she does not, adding that Supervisor Blevin clearly finds her conduct more interesting than, quote, the advancement of Imperial integrated security, and she's curious. She's curious to hear what he has to say. Well, the Major says, "Is this about Ferrix?" recounting how the Starpath unit was recovered in his sector and how Dedra wanted the crime reports. Well, Blevin retorts that the Major already found her out of order and in violation of the chain of command. But Dedra corrects him by saying that no, in fact, Major Partagaz advised her to reinforce her suspicion with data and to be careful in her work going forward. Well, Blevin dismisses her defense and saying, how many people at this table would find it careful that you found a way to access their sector data without even so much as filing a request?
Right.
Well, the Major says, is this true? And Dedra, she admits it. She says, yes, it is. Adding that she used the Imperial Emergency Act in the wake of the Aldani incident to gather data across multiple sectors without official sanction, but that is the wrong question to be asking. And the Major's eyes kind of light up like, what?
Yeah.
What?
He has a lot of respect for her, I think, like low-key.
I think it's veiled. I think it's veiled. I totally think it's veiled. I'll talk about it in a minute, but I agree with what you're saying, but I there's an angle. Well, Dedra continues asking if there's anyone there that believes that the rebels would plan their actions based on invisible lines on a map. one of the
just crazy. Just
one
like
of the other supervisors is like, Major Partagaz came up with those sector boundaries, and she like basically kind of loses it. She's like, yeah, as organizing principles, not as personal playthings. Well, the major, he kind of interjects at this point, and he questions, are you questioning the relevance of that my work has been supplanted? And boldly, Dedra blurts out that systems either change or die.
There's that line again.
There's the network thing.
Grow or
It
die.
either grows or dies. The major raises his eyebrows at her while Blevin looks smugly. Surely Blevin thinks that she's just dug her own grave. But the major is actually willing to entertain her, and he asks, thesis, please? Dedra reasserts her previous position that there is a focused, organized rebel effort to acquire highly restricted Imperial military components. And the unfiltered sector crime reports have allowed her to prove the link between the distribution of the stolen equipment to rebel groups across the galaxy. Pardon me. Well, the major asks her, is this hard, verifiable data, and is she prepared to present it? Which, of course, she is. Adding that she believes that Blevin's accusations actually stem from his own sense of self-preservation and not from urgency, as he calls it. And as you say, there's a pretty good chance here that Felzonis was not as discreet as she demanded him to be.
Yeah.
So again, as I said, I don't know if that resource records room was like somebody else's personal sector thing, or if that was a common resource.
I'd think it would be like the common thing for the entire ISP.
That's what I thought.
Like, this is your house of records.
But clearly, Felzonis is a weasel.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Blevin, still thinking like he's the chess master here, asks, what's more urgent than a renegade intelligence officer? He posits, what if everyone in the room played as loose with the rules as you did? And Major Partagaz chimes in, excellent suggestion, Blevin. He wonders aloud where they'd be if everyone showed the same initiative as Dedra. And Dedra stares at the major with like super surprised as the major says, I'll have to think about that. Switching gears, he orders that he's assigning the Morlana sector to Dedra, at least temporarily, as he says, Ferrix is of great interest to her and has become a distraction for you. And Blevin is clearly less than pleased with that decision, but he holds his tongue. He still doesn't see, the major, does not see anything that needs urgent attention, but at the same time, he also asserts that he salutes the provocative exchange of ideas. At that, Dedra can't help but let a smirk creep up on her face. And Major Partagaz wraps up the meeting, thanking them for what he calls a lively session. We got a comment here coming in tonight from our friend Sean on YouTube, who says, I want to see a young Thrawn start making his rank. A lot of that's covered in the new
Thrawn trilogy.
The Thrawn trilogy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't even think of the name of the damn thing.
Ascendance or something.
Ascendancy.
Yeah. Ascendance or ascendancy.
Yeah, I think so. We are going to see Thrawn. Like, have no doubt, we are going to get. We will get a Thrawn appearance. Whether I don't think it'll be in this series, but
I don't think so
that
too.
For certain. We are getting him for sure. If not, definitely by the time we get to Ahsoka.
Yeah,
for sure by then. All right. As the major gets up to leave, he beckons Dedra to join him, and no one else in the room even budges, despite the meeting having been dismissed. Instead, they all just sit there stunned by what just happened.
I mean, Wes, how many times did it happen to you where a superior officer said, Wes, walk with me? Like that. like Wes, walk with me.
So there you go. The first thing, calls her by her first name.
Right.
Walk with me.
A lot. He does a lot.
Which, by the way, I will say that's happened a lot. I worked for a British exchange officer for about a year, and he called me my first name all the time. When we were alone. Never in front of anybody.
Right.
So that was like, oh, yeah.
Can I point out one thing here?
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, but the little the patches there.
The rank pips?
The rank, yes.
Yeah.
How they have never really had like
a canonized like let's just reset everything and really put it out there. Yeah.
This might be it, because they are so consistent with these throughout this show.
I hope so.
Like,
I seriously hope
from the
so.
guys on Eldani
the previous
to the ISB.
Yeah.
The previous benchmark we had was from the game, right? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
and by game you mean the role playing,
the RPG.
Yes,
RPG,
of course. Yeah. Well, they get up to leave, and with her hands folded behind her back, Dedra widens her step to catch up with the Major. He stays just a few steps ahead of her the whole time, and as they exit the meeting room, he tells her, "Well played." And when she replies, "Thank you, sir," he gives her an earnest warning. Watch your back. As he walks off, leaving Dedra standing in the hallway with nothing but her own thoughts and a smile on her face.
Right.
Partagas, he's a crafty old dude. He did not get where he is by not, like, this dude's a schemer.
Yes.
And after we talked about how, you came here from enforcement. You're supposed to be the quiet, just do your job. We called her the diversity hire.
Yeah.
Right.
After the last run-in that she had with Blevin, it did sound like Partagas had some aspirations for her, even if he didn't sort of lay out what those were. But then again, he kind of downplayed them with that, be a good girl kind of intonation there.
Well, it's very much a go away, come here kind of
attitude.
Yeah.
Here's the thing in the military, when you hit a position of leadership, and I suppose that this applies to leadership in every sector, if your subordinates are doing a good job, then you look So with Dedra doing what she's doing, Partagas can take credit for it. I did this, not her.
That's right.
The same way that Tarkin did to Krennic, the weapon that I spoke of so long ago.
Right.
And I see that's what's happening here. He's a wily, crafty old codger, and he's using those years of experience to manipulate, because at the end of the day, she really did just embarrass him in front of all of those subordinates, and there's no way that he's going to let that happen again.
No. So I did sort of take his constant calling her by her first name, and we don't see him call another officer by their first name.
No.
As almost derogatory, like,
it's paternal. I mean, he's a man, she's a woman. It's a paternal,
right?
It's a paternal gesture, and not in a good way.
No, I absolutely agree, not in a good way.
Right. I think that we'll see some more craftiness from him before the show is out. In what sense? I'm not 100% sure, but I do think we've got more from him coming anyway.
Definitely want an action figure.
Yeah. Oh yes. More white uniforms.
I need a whole bunch of ISB action figures. Stop painting these other things I've got.
All right, we cut to an aerial shot of a flock of birds, what I've described as blue flamingos, while this like crazy EDM music plays. This is the song that I absolutely love, by the way. And as the camera pulls ahead of the birds, it pulls back, revealing a long row stretching for miles of what looks like resort complexes on an awesome tropical coastline.
Yeah, beachfront property.
Yeah.
Andor
Niamos,
Vice.
Niamos, Miami.
Yeah.
Niamos Vice. Okay. So I want to say, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but were you guys aware of a blue flamingo hoax going around the internet? Like, it's one of those ones that comes around every once in a while.
I don't believe I heard that one.
No, sir.
Yeah, since at least 2019, there have been reports of blue flamingos, and people, oh yeah, blue flamingo. There are no blue flamingos for like legit. But I kind of
eat shrimp.
Well, that's it. That's right. They're pink because of the shellfish.
Yeah.
I wondered if this was an intentional thing, like the animators were in on the internet hoax,
maybe,
or they're just big fans of Avatar.
I totally thought actually it was blue flamingos on purpose, because the shrimp type creatures that we've seen have been blue-green.
Are also blue.
Right? And
That's
I just
great.
thought, right? I honestly did. It felt cohesive to me.
For sure it does. For sure.
Go well with those blue noodles.
There you are. And blue milk. Maybe
the
blue milk
blue
comes
noodles.
from blue flamingos.
Yeah.
Ooh, gross.
Okay. Well, in a hotel suite littered with strewn clothing all over the place, a young woman named Wendy wakes up to the sound of a running shower. While sitting up in bed, she calls out, Keith, Keith, the latest pseudonym that Cassian apparently has adopted, as he's now found that place, that warm and easy place. In the bathroom, Cassian, opens up an armored case on the edge of the shower. And inside the case lay several Imperial credits, along with Nemec's leather-bound manifesto and Cyril Karn's corporate-issued blaster, now with the scope attached to it. Wendy calls from the bed asking, what are you doing? And Cassian slips a few credits out of the case as he says he's getting washed up. He was going to take a walk, and Wendy says that, well, we need some stuff. And she says that Arky's up the beach will be open. Arky is apparently the convenience store, I guess. Mm-hmm. Cassian says he was actually planning on going the other way. And it makes it even worse now when you realize that, we need Pizos. We need Pizos and Revnog got him arrested.
There's that sign. The greeny green ones.
The greeny green ones. Yeah. Arky's will be open. Cassian says he was planning on going the other way, but Wendy says that Arky's got new flavors and we need Pizos. Cassian closes up the case and he stashes it out of sight on a recessed ledge over the shower head. Some hotel maid, some dude's going in there for maintenance, and what's this? I hope not.
Well, now, I think
is this more. A hotel?
I would almost say for sure it's a hotel room.
Some kind of resort. Stay,
not
hostel,
like
etc.
No way.
No,
not on the beach like that. No.
I mean, certainly he could afford an apartment on the beach now, but I think he'd probably be more subtle with his money. But for me, this is okay. So Greef Karga gets arrested, but they're going to process him. They're going to find his chain code. They're going to know that he's Cassian Andor, and therefore they're going to know that if this room is registered to Keith
Karga,
it's registered to actually Cassian Andor. And so I think that Deidre herself is going to find the manifesto now, which
interesting
throws it a whole different
doesn't it
way.
That really does
spin it a whole different way.
That actually breaks my heart.
But is that book enough to sway her? Is the book enough to man, what a cool thought,
if she
right?
Flips?
Right.
Oh. Okay, that's something else. And then what? Then what? Karn gets picked up by the ISB as her replacement?
Maybe.
Wouldn't that be something?
Oh, let's read a show.
Catching him with that book instantly makes him out to be the leader of the rebellion.
Of course totally it does. Yes, right. It does. Yeah. This guy's a high-level rebel operative. Holy crap.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Cassian downs what's left of like a drink from a bottle, and he sways kind of like he's hungover. And as she's calling him, he completely ignores her as he dips his hand in the shower to test the water. Our girlfriend here, our latest girlfriend, Wendy, that is played by actress Katrina Nare. She did a couple episodes of EastEnders where she played a character, Nurse Marina Herrick. She was also in the reboot Doom Annihilation film as Veronica. Did anybody see that?
I have
no, sir.
No, neither have I. We all saw the Dwayne Johnson one.
Yes.
Did anybody remember it?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Dwayne Johnson was in that.
Yeah, he was.
It's probably better than Black Adam.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sometime later that day, Cassian walks down the beachfront, minding his own business, by the way, as other tourists sit on the stone bleachers admiring the ocean while he walks past.
I get the impression this is like at least 2 or 3 weeks past leaving Marva.
I don't know.
Just
long enough for him to hook up with somebody.
The amount of facial hair that's now back on him again.
I suppose, yeah, sure.
Hopefully we go back to Bix's forehead for a benchmark
That's right.
signature.
That's right. Look and see if there's a look for the bruise.
Yep.
Well, suddenly 4 men hop over a railing and run across the bleachers, disturbing several of the vacationers as they go. And from behind them, but down the way a bit, a shore trooper shouts to stop, but the men just keep running. Cassian just ignores the men and the shore trooper because, well, he's not talking to me. But as Cassian glances back, he sees the shore trooper who is now running after the men, and he starts to get nervous. Reaching a staircase, Cassian picks up his pace while he lightly jogs up the stairs away from the men and the shore trooper. Reaching the top of the plaza, Cassian passes a couple who are playing a physical game of Dejaric. Not a hollow version.
Very cool
game with physical pieces. While a trio of what I haven't decided yet are ID9 or ID10 seeker droids. These are related to the droids, if not the same model of droid that the Inquisitors use.
Absolutely.
The difference, but there's blasters on these ones.
Chin
mounted blaster.
Yeah. Like I said, there's probably there's probably ID 1 through 12 or something.
Yeah,
like
I guess
that.
so.
And then and field mods are
for sure there would be. Yeah,
totally.
Well, Cassian follows a windbreak wall and periodically checking over his shoulder. At the end of the wall, he turns to cross over to the nearby store, Arky's. Unfortunately, he's caught the attention of yet another shore trooper that just happened to be standing on the other side of the wall.
Is it funny that we get shore troopers on the shoreline?
On the shoreline. Well, that's what they're meant for, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I thought it was a fun little thing. I stopped on the Dejaric table. I wanted to see what pieces we could see. There is a fourth piece. It's behind the woman, but you can't make out what it is. There's just like one stick hanging out the side, and like there's not enough for me to guess on. But
there's our Kintan Strider, though.
I have a very high degree of confidence that the 3 pieces we are looking at are the Kintan Strider, as well as the the Kalor slug, and the Ingaok. The Ingaok. Yeah. Coincidentally, just because I think it's fascinating, chasing the rabbit down this hole, the photos I'm using here actually come from these are replica hollow chess pieces from Regal Robot. Now
beautiful.
these pieces were actually made from the 2015 digital files from Phil Tippett's team. And those files are actual scans of the original puppets from 77.
Nice.
Wow.
So, yeah. These are highly accurate to what we saw back in A New Hope. Interestingly enough, Regal Robot made 77, a limited run of 77 deluxe Dejaric sets, including the board and all 12 pieces.
It's gotta be that, eh? Wouldn't you be like, if you could dip into the real world for something physical and you didn't have to remake it, wouldn't you dip into that? I mean, wow.
You would love to.
Just like I think that the Hot Toys clone.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely you would do that.
These chess pieces, that deluxe set, all 77 sets sold out at a retail price point of $4,799 US.
Wow.
So that's pretty amazing. But you can get waitlisted for some more pieces that they have on their website. All right, and like I said, I don't know if these are ID9s or ID10s, but we've looked at these before. We looked at them in Kenobi because they were prevalent in Kenobi. I've put up some versions of the ID9. These are animation models, and the ID10, as well as the modified ID10 used by Iden Versio in Star Wars Battlefront 2. I mean, they're definitely in the family,
Oh yeah,
they're in the family. Could be just a pit droid with no body for all I know. So that's kind of what it looks like too. All right. Well, the shore trooper immediately starts to harass Cassian, asking him if he was a part of it, Are you a part of it? Whatever it is. And when Cassian says, a part of what? The trooper's like, don't play dumb. And Cassian, who just tries to breeze past the trooper, says, I'm just on my way to the store. But the trooper formally detains him and backs him up towards the windbreak to ask him some more questions. Well, the trooper says, looks like you've been sweating. And Cassian points out the obvious, it's hot out. But the trooper suggests that, well, maybe you've been running. And Cassian says, why would I be running? And the trooper says, because you're part of it. Still confused by it, Cassian says, a part of what? And the trooper barks, I'll ask the questions. Well, just then, 3 of the suspect men run past Cassian and the shore trooper. The trooper radios in that the runners are headed south at Pier 9. And like a good citizen, Cassian says, I can wait here for you. But the trooper, who's not, is just not interested in chasing after the men, not when he has a suspect right here.
Right.
And he also has all the authority that he needs to make any quotas that he might have to make this month. And so he says, friends of yours, as the 3 guys go running by. Cassian tries to explain that I'm a tourist. I don't know anyone here. But the trooper dismisses his explanation, saying that, well, tourists don't run. And with the weird look, Cassian's like, but I'm not running. And the trooper's like, you got that right, because that window is shut. And as he says that, a KX model security droid comes walking up the stairs carrying 2 of the men, while a 3rd man is tossed into frame by a 2nd KX droid that's walking in from just off camera. All right, and the big news this week is that our shore trooper is voiced by Star Wars veteran alum Sam Witwer. It's an uncredited role, like most of the trooper cameos have been.
I caught it early. I when he screamed Kenobi, that's when I knew it was him.
Daniel Craig, Kevin Smith has been reported to have been a stormtrooper, uncredited. Couple of tweets here. We did get a tweet from Sam back, obviously from the helmet from Luthen. So that was a couple of weeks ago. I totally missed that one. And then we got another one this week. Are you a part of it? But yes, Sam Witwer, Darth Maul, by the way, also Palpatine in the animated series. The animated series. Yeah, that was a new one for me. And of course, Star Killer from The Force Unleashed.
I went down Sam Witwer rabbit hole.
Yes, you did.
Man, he was in so many things like Phineas and Ferb and
Doomsday on Smallville.
Oh, really?
Live action. He was in Battlestar Galactica.
He was in Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. All right. Well,
fantastic.
The shore trooper calls for droid assistance. And wait a second here. We got another comment coming in here. Sean from YouTube, who says, a Star Wars Black Series action figure, do a bath with different droids. Build a figure for different droids.
We're all on the same page, Sean.
We all have said
been
the same
begging
thing.
for that.
Like, this is where you get small vehicles. Like, why don't I have a 6-inch? I could. You've given me 2 versions of the Mark 1 battle droid. So why haven't I got a stab yet? You could have threw that in as a bath.
Tons,
over 4 or 5, 6 figures. Yeah,
you could easily do a 6-inch tauntaun. You could. It's just.
No, I hear you.
Absolutely.
Well, in the McFarlane line, they just did a horse for the Dark Knight Returns.
Bane was a bad. I mean, Bane's huge, but yeah. Your point is well received, Sean.
Absolutely.
We all agree. We've been
Hasbro.
clamoring for Star Wars build a figure or build a something in their Black Series releases.
More than one blaster, for God's sakes.
Yeah, that's right. Calling for droid assistance, the KX unit unceremoniously drops the 2 suspects and approaches the trooper for instruction. The trooper tells the droid to, and this is a quote, by the way, hang on to this one for me. I want to check the shelter. And as the trooper walks away, the KX unit squares off with Cassian And in a moment of what I am calling a critically flawed logic says, he said, hang. Cassian backs away from the droid, trying to reason with it, saying that, no, you've misunderstood. And the trooper, in fact, meant to watch him, but the droid repeats itself, hang, and picks Cassian up by the throat and slamming him into the wall. Cassian struggles against the droid, but he cannot break its grip. Desperately, he shouts at the gaggle of nearby shore troopers standing at Arky's, tell the droid what you meant, tell him you meant watch me. And then I presume he falls unconscious.
Yeah.
Kind of looks
so my
like
heart sank in this scene, and I'll tell you, I got to tell you why.
Yeah.
Not because Cassian was being choked out, and not because he was being wrongly accused of a crime he didn't commit, even though he has committed several crimes in his life. Yeah. My heart sank because that was not Alan Tudyk's voice.
Alan Tudyk. Were you hoping for it?
I was really hoping. I was super hoping that this
was
going to be the moment they met. I really, as soon as I saw the droid, I went, like, not that I knew he wasn't going to reprogram that second or
in
whatever.
That moment. Yeah.
But I just wanted that to be his voice for just a split second.
I had a moment. I'm not going to lie. I had a moment where it's like, maybe. But then I remember, Alan Tudyk said, I'm not in the first season. He said it point blank. Yeah.
But we've had people say that before.
Yeah. I'm not in it.
There was 2 years of
Andrew Garfield.
Saying,
I'm not in it.
Obi-Wan show. There's no
Toby
Obi-Wan
Maguire.
show.
I'm not in
what
it.
You're talking about.
Sure.
I'll tell you what I have a problem with. And I mean, I'm sure it's been what? It's now Sunday, Sunday the 23rd. The episode has been out as of this recording for
5 days.
5 days. Well, as recently as yesterday, still no update on everybody's favorite Star Wars resource, the Wikipedia, which actually gives this model of droid a very glowing review in terms of what it's capable of, makes no mention of the critical flaw in its logic processors that, as I said to you, Hank, any droid that can stretch, hang on to this one and turn it into hang is a danger to everyone, including its owner.
Absolutely.
The Empire should legitimately be scared of these things.
Right.
They don't follow the three laws.
We could chalk this up to they've just adjusted the programming in light of what's just happened.
I suppose so, yeah.
But and then I speculated perhaps this very flaw in its logic is what allows Cassian to reprogram one so effectively.
Yeah. Maybe. How effective is it though? And I asked that because this won't be the last time that Cassian gets choked out by a KX model.
No.
In the 2017 Cassian and K2SO Rogue One prequel comic, we actually get that sequence where Cassian reprograms him and K2SO chokes him out very much in the same way. Cassian has some help in this one, so he's actually able to subdue K2SO. But in the reprogramming, he even says, sorry, you've only wiped 29% of my memory. So who knows? Maybe some of those critical logic faults are just built in the components.
Some of the way, congratulations, you're being rescued.
Yeah, exactly. Ground, Don't resist. Anyway, seriously, guys, if you are not a fan, fandom.com, it's the Wikipedia. Have a look at the KX security droid entry, read through it, and then laugh along with us at how laughable it really is now in light of this chokeout. Also, they killed a bunch of Mandalorians. Just saying.
Yeah.
Night of 1,000 tears. Night of 1,000 tears. Right.
Sure did.
All right. Okay. Cool thing here though. Our KX droid, hold on a second here. Our KX unit is played by veteran puppeteer Aiden Cook. Now we've talked about him before. He's done some work. He did some work on the Dark Crystal television series. actually gets 2 credits in this episode. Not only is he the voice of our KX droid, but he's also the alien bailiff in the court sequence.
Oh, cool.
And no stranger to Star Wars, he was the physical embodiment of Boolio, the character, the second character voiced by Mark Hamill in The Rise of Skywalker. They put his head on a table. He also played both the brothers, Benthic and Idrio Two Tubes. Idrio and Benthic appeared in both Rogue One and Solo, a Star Wars story.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. In a sweaty courtroom somewhere on Niamos, a disinterested judge calls for some charges to be read. The prosecutor reads, loitering at the scene of a crime, walking an unleashed mastiff, and animal fouling. And with an analog credit card machine, like the old swiper.
Oh, yeah.
The judge puts a blank plate on the machine, and she basically
laser engraves it.
Like swipes the disposition of the court case, where she announces a 4-month jail sentence. This guy just got 4 months in jail for walking his dog, letting his dog pee, and leaving it.
Yep.
Ooh, does that just so now does that not tell you that the port
fully enacted?
We've reevaluated all of our sentencing, and now everything is so much bigger. All right. Which is kind of funny though, because the transcription on the card is actually not reflective of what she says. Yeah. Because the card actually says that the accused name is Richard Stevenson, and he's been accused of failure to follow Imperial command, anti-Imperial vandalism, and he's actually been sentenced to 5 years in prison. So nice little Easter egg to sneak in there. Did you find out who Richard Stevenson was?
I did not.
I didn't either. I got the other name though.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then it's Cassian's turn as the bailiff calls out, Keith Girgo here. And stepping out from the lineup, the judge asks for the charges to be read, and the prosecutor begins. Civil disruption, anti-imperial speech, fleeing the scene of anti-imperial activity, and attempted damage to imperial property. I guess that's when he was trying to get the droid to like let go of don't kill me.
Wow.
Cassian tries to plead with the judge, but she tells him don't, because he's in enough trouble without adding a resisting judgment charge. Cassian makes one final plea saying that I'm just a tourist, and the judge sarcastically says, oh, apologies all around then. And as the judge remarks, oh, this used to be a 6-month sentence, she swipes the machine. 6 years. 6 what? 6 years? Cassian tries to plead with her, but she orders him removed from the courtroom. And as the shore troopers drag him off, she remarks that it's a change of guidelines. This is obviously the fallout from the emergency measures enacted by the Emperor that Colonel Yularen spoke about. And just like the last sentence, this plate does not reflect what she said either, because this one translates to somebody by the name of Keith Seymour, who's accused of being force sensitive, assaulting an Imperial officer, and has received a sentence of 25 years. 25 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
maybe they think we're not reading these things.
I actually think this is a cool way to slip something in. Keith Seymour is a concept artist, has worked on Star Wars projects before, has done some work for Marvel as well as Warner Brothers. So as a concept artist, I kind of wonder if maybe that's a nice way to sneak in, like, this is some of his work.
Maybe
right.
Some of his work, maybe, that he conceptually conceived of.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a mouthful. All right, so going back to what Yularen said about reevaluating the sentences, does anybody remember this line?
Fear will keep the local systems in line.
Anybody remember when Tarkin said that back on the Death Star?
Oh yeah.
I think the follow-up line was fear of this battle station, but really,
fear will keep the local systems in line.
Right.
If I'm going to go to jail for 5 years for letting my dog pee or poop on the ground,
Right.
I'd be
Everyone else
I would be a little bit I'd be kind of worried about that.
You make an
Right.
example of a few and the rest will just fall in line.
And the one thing that these oppressive regimes have always done, aside from literally oppressing their citizens, is that type of stuff is what creates rebels.
Yep.
If you bomb a village and you're creating your own terrorists, if you will, in the real world, right? But,
of course. All right, so our prosecutor is actor Glenn Pritchard. Now, he's done tons of British television, including 6 episodes of Coronation Street, where he played Malcolm Fox. He also did 14 episodes of Brookside. Our judge, my God, I was so thrilled when I saw this. Our judge, that's actress Beattie Edney. Now, on top of being a star in a show called Poldark, of which she appeared in for 42 episodes, you might remember her as Heather McLeod, wife of Connor McLeod.
No way.
Highlander. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah. Super cool. Yeah.
She should have sentenced someone to a beheading then. Certainly. Come on, Tony Gilroy.
Yeah.
That's
that
awesome.
Just makes them immortal. Come on.
That's right. That's right. Oh no, the quickening.
Yep.
Andor, the quickening.
So good. Nice grab.
Yeah. All right, we cut back to the Bureau of Standards and we get this extreme close-up of Cyril Karn's eyes darting about as he scans through lines of code. He fiddles with a control knob for a moment before looking up and away from his screen.
I didn't get the impression he was doing his job here at all, actually. I got the impression he was doing self-serving things.
Oh,
I don't know why,
but I kind of thought he was looking at the code. But again, definitely distracted because he does look away. Ironically, he looks right into the camera, which that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Looks right into the camera, and the camera now snap cuts several times as it pulls back. And each time the camera does, it draws back to reveal just how insignificant Cyril has become as he is now dressed in the exact same uniform as everybody else and has now become part of the monochromatic hive of drones that is the Bureau of Standards. And just before or as at the exact same time as we are cutting to black, we can hear the sound of a prison door slam shut. And that's it. That's our episode.
Crazy.
And to point out,
yeah,
the numbers are all just plain English. They don't even translate them to the Orabesh version of the numbers.
Well, the number thing is interesting. Like, I was talking to Kim about this earlier today, and she thought that he may have seen something in the numbers.
Maybe.
And then I'm like, well, he's assigned to fuel purity. Is there some chance that he's able to, figure out what kind of fuel was in the Rono, and maybe he can figure out the range of how far it might have been able to get? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know if he saw anything in the numbers or not. I do think he was distracted, though.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it, guys. That's the announcement. What do you think?
Wow.
It's a good one.
I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's been a slow burn, and we've certainly caught full fire now.
Yeah.
We're fully ablaze. And the spark that, it's that Poe Dameron line, the spark that ignites the rebellion. We're really getting to see that full force. Like I said at the beginning, if you're going to tell a story, I need these people to tell me stories that matter.
Yep.
And you worry, are you just going to just tell the story to get it out there and make some money off of us? Certainly the Aldani heist is a story that needs telling, because the repercussions of those events are vast.
Wide.
So far reaching.
It never occurred to me that the Empire was just going through the motions for 15 years before they started grinding their heel into the population of the galaxy.
Any ideas going forward? Any speculations you want to throw around? Any questions you want to ask?
I'm blown away. I have a million questions. I don't even know if I could format them right now.
Well, the obvious one for me is how is Cassian going to get out of this?
Right, and I had thought
because he's either gonna be let out, let out, busted out, or he will break out.
Just escape. And then I thought, like Val's mission to kill him, how far does she take that? Does she take it to a place where she gets arrested herself so that she can get him from the inside?
From the inside.
Or does she go against the grain and take it upon herself to rescue him? Like, I mean, there's only 4 episodes left.
I have seen this week that there's a portion of the fan community that have said maybe he'll meet somebody on the inside and they together will break out, and sort of the leading, and this is purely fan service, but hey, your buddy Hondo.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, would that not be an interesting, like, we're gonna get out of here?
It might be.
Work.
I don't know if there's any weight to that, but it's fun to entertain the thought. So,
it'd be a great place to meet Son Guerrera.
Well,
we did see him in the initial
we know
trailer.
That he's in the show,
right?
We haven't seen him yet. So that's the big one. How's he going to get out of this? Is Vel going to be involved in that? Maybe. Is Dedra going to be involved in that? Maybe. Because now, like you say, he's in an Imperial prison somewhere. Should be pretty easy to find once he's identified.
Super worried about that manifesto being in the hands of the
That is
Empire.
the other one. As I'm staring at my
crazy.
note, in a freaking hotel room is exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Yeah. Some maintenance dude made somebody, people break into hotel rooms.
Broom boy. You know what I mean? Right? Like, some rando takes credit for it, and
seriously worried for the fate
Admiral
of the rebellion.
Akbar is just a janitor, and he finds it, and suddenly
it's a trap.
Hey, in Legends, Akbar was Tarkin's slave.
He was. He absolutely
was.
You
know that?
I did not know.
Yeah,
that.
In Legends, Akbar is a slave to Tarkin for a while,
like a manservant. Yeah,
he's also part of the team that built the B-wing starfighter. Yeah.
Suppose this though.
Yeah, sure.
Based on the manifestos, they find it. And
okay, they who's they?
Say the Imperials.
The Empire finds it. Okay,
like, he's arrested now, so they just go search his room on principle.
Yeah,
and kick out poor girl and
whoever's living there at the moment.
But they find that, and before they identify him as Cassian, they get that, and that instantly positions him as like a leader of the rebellion. So anonymously, the call goes out, and say, Luthen or Saw or whoever,
right.
Oh, one of our high-ranking guys is in. We got to break him out. And when they break him out, it's like,
that's interesting.
Who the hell are you?
I do think that there's some room for that. I don't think that we're 100% there yet, because the network, it is a loose network, and at this point, because they don't cohese together to form the alliance part until just before. So I mean,
that it's actually played out in Rebels. The joining of the groups when everybody coalesces on Yavin.
That's
4.
right. Yeah.
Up until then, I would say that
groups working with the same goals. Yeah,
I probably would gather that while being the most militant and they're militaristic, I bet you Saw Gerrera's group is the most organized.
Yeah, at this point, they probably are.
He's been fighting these kind of guerrilla wars since early in the Clone Wars.
In the Clone War, yeah,
absolutely.
As a young man, when he was a different voice. Mm-hmm. It's okay. It's normal for Star Wars now.
Totally normal.
Wow. We got what do we got? This is episode 7 of 12. So
5 left. I was wrong. 5 left.
We've got a 3-episode arc, and we have a 2-episode arc / finale,
which is going to upset us to no end.
Well, because we've got a second season.
Yeah, because you're going to
got a second season.
Well, no, if it's a 2-part finale, then they're going to leave us cliffhanging on 11.
Yeah,
we gotta wait a week.
doubt. No
That's
doubt.
true. The bigger cliffhanger, which I think isn't not cliffhanger, word came out this week from Tony Gilroy that season 2 will end 5 days before the events of Rogue One.
Ooh.
Wow.
5 days before. So that is a very interesting, and if I just watched Rogue One again recently, and if you recall, Rogue One opens on in an asteroid belt on a space station. So it'd be cool to see Cassian get to become the captain that we know he will be.
Well, it doesn't exactly leave the window open for season 3.
Season 3. It's called Rogue One.
There you go.
Anything you guys want to finish on before we wrap it up?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good as well. Listen, everybody, this has been Fandor. It has been it's a passion project for the three of us here at Fandom Power. We love bringing this stuff to you guys. It really has made my Star Wars journey rather transformative. As I've said before, I don't watch these shows with the same eyes now that I used to, and
I don't watch anything the same way anymore.
yeah. Am I ever glad that I'm watching this stuff much more microscopically as opposed to macroscopically? It's been so much more enjoyable for me and so much deeper. And listen, if you're not gonna watch it that way, stick with us on our show, and we'll do all the work for you.
Yeah,
right here on Fandom Power. That's it for me, guys. For us here at Fandom Power. Until the next time, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
And we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Bye for now.
You can't be here.